Periscope for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Today's Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. "155 days into the new year. Only 211 days left. We are live. We are live from a bunker. A bunker that is somewhere in the middle of, that's right, beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world. All across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near, hither and thither. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? All right. Slight mood change, not only around here, but across the country. Can you feel it? That's right. It's because tonight, very special guest, Grant Cameron. Yeah, man. Grant Cameron is here. Oh, man. Time to get our feet back on the ground. Grant Cameron is joining us, and we are going to cover all of his latest research tonight. And then we will jump into all of the UFO, UAP, ET acronyms and the news of those acronyms around the world. And tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Yeah, we've had a lot of open lines this week. Looking forward to that. I've taken a lot of phone calls. If we go back, to last Thursday night to today. Today's Wednesday. Oh man, I have taken hundreds of phone calls. Feel like the operator in in that new movie on Amazon. Oh man. Okay. All right. Yeah, Grant Cameron is here, so get ready for that. He's going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Let's get some things out of the way. This is Fade to Black. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow me right there on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox on Twitter. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. And I just looked up UFO tweets. It's got a picture of a little baby deer drinking water out of a bubbling brook. Trying to stir trouble. See, trying to light the fires right there with a picture of Bambi. Meow with a picture of carnations. Oh, you guys are too much. It's true, though, isn't it? It's really true. It doesn't take anything. Olivia just posted a picture of I Dream of Jeannie, a GIF, and even that will incite emotions today. Yeah. Okay. All right. Where am I at? Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Okay? Any questions or comments, do post them to hashtag F2BQ. Grant Cameron is here. Lots of questions for you, and you can post them there. You can also pop them up in the email. If you're over, we broadcast all over the place. If you're over on YouTube, hello, everybody. If you got a question over on YouTube, I guess put it in all caps. One of our moderators will see it, and then maybe get it in here to me. I'm just trying to think of a way for everybody to get engaged tonight. And, of course, we have not only Twitter, we have the chat rooms. We have one over at Spreaker. We have one over at KGRA, The Planet. And, of course, our sandbox. And you can get everything going. And I try to stay on top of it. It's going to be a busy night on the show. And I always look forward to having Grant with us. So stay tuned. He will be with us at the bottom of the hour. Right now, I do want you to get your immune system boosted. Now is the time to do it. Coronavirus hasn't gone away. Lots of reports, too, today about numbers going back up here in the United States. Oh, man. So there's only one thing to do. There's only one thing you can do. Get your immune system boosted. Okay, I want you to visit getthetea.com and use the promo code FADER over there. And when you do that, you will get free shipping on all orders over $50. Go to the specials page. The immunity kit that they've got right there for you is perfect. That's a perfect way to get things started. Also, when you're over at jimmychurchradio.com, click on the banner right there for Billy Carson's new internet TV network. Go over there and get registered. And when you do, you will get 3 days free, right? 3 days, right? So go and do it right now. Trial membership, 3 days. Over at forbiddenknowledge.tv. Last night during the show, I went through 2 cups, 2 of these, of River Moon coffee. I got to tell you, I needed it last night. But after the show last night, this is why I love River Moon coffee. After the show, Rita and I started to binge. Didn't get too far into it, though, but Schitt's Creek. The last season, season 6. We've been putting it off because we're so bummed about it. That's it. It's over. It's the last season. That's it. But that's all possible because of River Moon Coffee. And I want you to visit rivermooncoffee.com. The banners and links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Also, you can visit their Amazon store and check out both of our blends. Fade to Black blend, Game Changer blend. Both of them will change your life. Guaranteed. Man, it's the best coffee in the world. Every time I say it. Do you guys have the same problem now? I go River Moon Coffee. It's Doc. You've got to have it. Right there. Do you automatically just go, man, do I have time to go make a pot of coffee right now? Did I do it before the show? Is it ready? Is it ready? Do I have a cup ready? Am I good to go? That's what happens. That's what happens. I don't have an alarm clock. I'm going to let you guys know. I don't have an alarm clock in the morning. You know what gets me out of bed? River Moon Coffee. Smell it wafting up the stairs. Yeah. And Rita knows this too. Rita knows. I mean, Rita's up early in the morning. She's out on our patio. She's making phone calls, doing her things, taking notes, planning the future, keeping me organized, all of that. And she's like, that's it. He's had enough sleep. She goes and makes it. She knows. I'm downstairs 5 minutes after that. I am just good to go. Good morning, honey. How you doing? Oh, man. What's better, the taste of coffee or the smell of coffee? What is better? tie. Tie. Because it's tasty, no doubt. Tasty. But the smell of coffee, right? Breaking news. Breaking news. If you haven't heard, I don't know where you have been today, but all 4 former officers involved in George Floyd's murder have now been formally charged during a live press conference today by Minnesota AG Keith Ellison. Derek Chauvin, who pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, had previously been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The new second-degree murder charge announced earlier today says that he killed Floyd without intent in the course of committing assault in the third degree. Thomas Lane and J. Alexander Kuhn, who helped restrain Floyd, and To Tao, who stood near the officers, were not initially charged. Lane, 37 years old, Kuhn, 26 years old, and Tao, 34, are now charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. Second-degree murder and aiding and abetting second-degree murder are punishable by up to 40 years in prison. Manslaughter and aiding and abetting manslaughter are punishable by up to 10 years in prison. That's it. They're all in custody. Also today, Snapchat removed President Trump from their promotion tab over, quoting them, inciting racial violence and injustice. Announcing it removed Trump from its Discover tab, accusing him of promoting racial violence and injustice in tweeting about rioters outside of the White House. They went on to say, this is a quote, "We are not currently promoting the president's content on Snapchat's Discover platform. We will not amplify voices who incite racial violence and injustice by giving them free promotion on Discover. Racial violence and injustice have no place in our society, and we stand together with all who seek peace, love, equality, and justice in America." End quote. Discover promotes news publishers, elected officials, celebrities, and other influencers who have a presence on their platform. President Trump is followed by more than 1.5 million Snapchat users. Also, today, now, I want you to understand something. The news that I just present the news. I report the news. It's vetted information. I go through it, 1 source, 2 source, 3 source, bam, news, right? Okay, now, this next news story is something you knew nothing about. NASA is reporting, now, and I'm giving this to you, half of it is after the fact. That's right, the news has already passed us. So check this out. NASA is reporting that at least 5 asteroids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 asteroids are flying towards Earth this week. That's right. 4 of the near-Earth objects cruised past last night. That's right. And you didn't know about it because there were other news grabbing the headlines. The 108-foot wide 2020 KK-7 coasted by us at 34,000 miles an hour. There's another one, 2020 KD-4, measuring 115 feet wide, cruised by at 12,000 miles per hour. The biggest of yesterday's bunch, the 144-foot 2020 KF, shot past our planet at 24,000 miles per hour, about 2.9 million miles away. And then there was 2020 KJ-1, measuring a relatively paltry 105 feet and plodding along at 11,000 miles per hour, brought up the rear. It was the last rock to pass us by yesterday, and they all did it together. It's not over, though. Now, this is the part of the breaking news that you need to be aware of. Because in a couple of days, an asteroid potentially taller than New York's Empire State Building and the London Eye combined, known as 2002 NN4, is going to pass by the Earth this Saturday, June 6th. Trip on that, right? Normally, I like to stay on top of these things, but hey, the headlines are buried with other stuff. Now, I want to let you know the StarWorks UFOs and Artificial Intelligence Conference in Laughlin, Nevada is going down November 5th through the 8th at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. I'm going to be there speaking. I'm going to be speaking on AI. Get ready for that. Rita's going to be there. Our Fade to Black crew is going to be there. Grant Cameron, our guest tonight, is going to be there. Paul Hynek's going to be there. James Fox, Alan Stivelman, Sid Goldberg, and another dozen great speakers. So I want you to go to StarWorksUSA.com for tickets and info, banners and links over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Disclosure Fest, one of the biggest events in the world, is going on my birthday, October 10th. That is Saturday, October 10th, at the historic Los Angeles Park in downtown Los Angeles. Okay, I want you to go to disclosurefest.org so you can check out all of the great speakers, the vendors, everything that's going on, music, yoga, meditation, mass meditation. Been hosting this event now this will be our 4th year. Huge event, 20,000 attendees. Disclosurefest.org. It's totally free, too. That's right. Disclosurefest.org. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today, my man, Peter Takarin. Today, 50. Slayers, Kerry King today, 56. Mott the Hoople's Ian Hunter. I had to double check this today. Then I went and watched a video for all the young dudes. Ian Hunter, 81 years old. Stereophonics frontman Kelly Jones today is 46. And Rita's favorite, Susie Quattro, today, 70 years old. And leading up the pack today, one of my favorite singers in the world, Doro Pesch. She's just Doro. Doro, the queen of metal. Doro Pesch today, 56 years old. Remember her band, Warlock? Yeah, man. Doro Pesch, 56 years old. On this day in history, 1956 OTD. Rock and roll is banned in Santa Cruz, California. City authorities announced a total ban on rock and roll at public gatherings, calling the music, and I quote, detrimental to both the health and morals of our youth and community, end quote. They banned them both, the rock and the roll. Fader fact. Rita, are you listening? Philadelphia cream cheese was invented in New York. That's right. And it has never been produced in Philadelphia. Its name was an 1880s marketing strategy because at the time, New York didn't make good cheese, and Philadelphia was known for high-quality dairy. There you go. Tonight, very special guest, Grant Cameron, joins us. We're going to be covering all of his latest research. He's an amazing researcher. And we're going to be covering all of the UFO, UAP, ET news from around the world. Tomorrow night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. Let me hit this River Moon coffee. Nancy, where'd you get this picture? Is that Italian food? I'm trying to remember. Is that Italian food? Wow. I'm trying to remember when that was. Couldn't have been that long. I'm trying to think that Van Halen t-shirt I'm wearing and the bracelet. So is that about a year ago? Italian food here at the house? I don't remember that going down. Was it good? It looks good. All right. As I reported earlier in the breaking news, all 4 ex-MPD officers involved in the murder of George Floyd have been charged, and reports are now that they are all in custody. Now, today, was the first full day of normal television here in Los Angeles. That's right. Instead of the live 24-hour news that took over every local news channels here in our city, that was going on for the last week. And I can only speak for myself, but I feel a true sense of relief. The protests will go on, as they should, but the looting has all but stopped, and the negative side of everything has started to chill out. Yeah. I say these things to you tonight because we are all Americans. And we're all affected by these events of lawlessness that have occupied the media. And the tense feelings that we all have when watching things just spin out of control. Hopefully, we have moved past the stupid stuff, and we can now start to figure out a way forward. The path we choose will be the right one that involves all of us, from individuals to the media, artists, politicians, the community, law enforcement, every sector of our great nation. Our community, this community, probably understands all of this better than just about any group that you can think of. You see, we have wanted nothing but change, disclosure, and we are used to the fight. All we do around here is question the system, the man. And this community is made up of every type of person that is possible. Everybody is here. Everybody is welcome. It doesn't matter what you think about politics, that is left on the table. Religion, on the table. Music, food, your background, none of that matters here. None of it. All we want here is to unite, to be heard, and to fight the good fight. That is what we do and who we are. And it's because of this, our welcoming nature, our open-mindedness, the way that we converse and talk and share ideas, and our pursuit of secrets and knowledge and constantly chasing the man for answers. It's because of that we are also greatly moved by the events over the last week. Leaving aside, of course, the traumatic situation that we've all been in for the last 3 or 4 months. But now that these 4 guys, these 4 murderers responsible for George Floyd, now that they are in custody, their mugshots are there for all of us to see, right? And some of the pressure now has been relieved, and we can now start to move forward to real change. And I think that's important. We now have a lot of work in front of us. Nothing has gone away because we still have to rebuild an entire world's economy. We still have to get our kids back in school. We still have mortgage and rent and bills and a job to think about. We have to deal with the trials of these ex-MPD officers. We also have, and I don't know if you guys know this, we have a presidential election coming up. And of course, with all of that, we have our continuing efforts to answer the questions about an ET presence here on Earth and that quest for knowledge. So tonight, we have Grant Cameron with us, one of the great minds in our community. And he joins us right in the middle of everything that we are all dealing with. And although we'll be talking about all of the great subjects that he's constantly researching, he's also just like you. It's going to be interesting to get his take on the sea of change that this planet is currently dealing with. One of the funnest things that I can do is when I get to sit down with my favorite researchers, and authors and just talk, at lunch maybe or over a drink and just chat about anything but UFOs and Bigfoot. When this happens, you get their best stuff because, they're used to talking about the same old stuff, UFOs and abductions. But once you get them started on life, once you do that, the conversation lasts for hours, right? Now, we always save the UFO stuff. We save that stuff for the show. It's the opposite with Grant. Grant, my man Grant, is UFOs 24/7. Seriously. Hey, Grant, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Jimmy, man, have you heard about the latest case? Whoa, Grant, how's the family? Man, this latest case, man, we got to... Grant. So tonight, let's see if I can get the other side of Mr. Grant Cameron. And don't worry. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Oh, no. We're going to get to the good stuff because it's Grant Cameron. Seriously. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. As you can see, there has been a general mood change around here, around the country. The pressure relief valve has been popped a little bit. We can all relax. I've got normal TV back on, which I never watch anyway. But if I choose to, it's just normal stuff, right? And hopefully you are seeing the same and feeling the same things in your part of the world. With that, I'm going to get out of here and take a break. I'm going to come back with our guest tonight, Mr. Grant Cameron. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be a great conversation. It's Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show. on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Grant Cameron joins us. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Fader Night. Open lines all night long. It's going to be a great show tomorrow night. Done a lot of open lines this week with all of you. And it's going to be great to sit down and just have a conversation tonight and feel a little bit more normal tomorrow night. But tonight it's Grant. And we are going to be covering all of the latest research that Grant finds himself in. And we're going to cover all of the UFO, ET, UAP headlines from around the world in another open and comprehensive conversation that we always do with Grant. He has been a UFO researcher since 1975 and was recognized as both the Leeds Conference International Researcher of the Year and the UFO Congress Researcher of the Year. He's a world-renowned expert on UFOs, conspiracies, government cover-ups, and has spent decades watching and chronicling developments around the extraterrestrial contact. He is the author of Charlie Red Star, and his website, of course, is beyondpresidentialufo.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Grant Cameron. Grant, how are you tonight, man?
Fantastic, Jimmy.
It's great.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us on. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you know what's great? The audience can't see us, but tonight, you and I don't know how many shows and interviews and things we've done over the years. This is the first time we've done it face-to-face. Right, they can't see it, but tonight, Grant and I are watching each other on video. But welcome back to the program, and it has been Grant. Before we get to the UFO subject, we would not really be too responsible if we ignore the elephant in the room, and that is the sea of change that is going around the world right now and across the United States. And you're just north of us up there in Canada, which means you're involved by proxy, right? So, yeah. And how you guys doing up there, and what's the mood like?
It's not quite as tense as it is down in the United States. We have, of course, we had the same sort of unemployment thing. We don't have the rioting or anything like that. That's your belief in separation. I'm different than you, and you have the problem with the African American. We had just before COVID, we had the problem with Aboriginals, which is our sort of belief in separation up here, where they were blockading stuff and over pipelines and stuff like that. So you always get that kind of stuff, but we sort of look down at the United States and say, well, we're much better off than what's going on there, even though there's still lots of unemployed people here. Restaurants have gone back to serving in the last couple of days. People are allowed in hospitals. I don't think we have a single person in a hospital here right now. So we've basically got no cases. We got the 5G, but we got no COVID cases. That's the 3D version. The way I look at it, I'm going to do a panel coming up, because I've moved off sort of the UFO thing and I've gotten into the sort of the what's reality type thing. I'm doing a panel shortly where I'm going to have six people on who had the vision. They got just done a book called Contact Modalities. People who sort of get into the field and pick up information. I've got six from different one's from a float tank out of LA. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are near-death experience people, and basically they get the vision that everything is absolutely perfect. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it's a really, really, you go like, come on, this is like crazy stuff. And yet these people will come back from these near-death experiences and say, this is the vision, this is the dream, that's the reality. And this very bizarre thing that in the end, it's like it's a reincarnation world. So whatever it is, you're being dealt a bunch of cards. Play the cards, quit whining. You can always find someone who's worse off than you, someone that's better off than you. And that's sort of what I spend a lot of my time doing. I'm actually now working on a book called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not. And it looks into this whole aspect of the crossovers between UFOs and weird things like the spirit world, where I'll give you two examples. Just blew me away. Where a lot of people who we consider to be abductees will say, I was allowed to go into the spirit world, and I'm in the spirit world. There's a Mormon friend of mine, Ron Johnson, out of Utah, says I'm there and I'm with my mother 3 times. I'm in the spirit world, and she's showing me around. She shows me this building, and it's a small little tiny building that looks like a temple. We go inside the temple, and he said it was 10 times the size inside as it was outside. And as soon as he said that, I went, oh, Chris Bledsoe said the same thing.
Right.
When Chris Bledsoe told me he flew the flying saucer, I said, Chris, stop. I want you to tell me about the flying saucer. Tell me, how do you fly a flying saucer? And because I knew I've got 50 people that have told me how to do it. But he told me in the same thing. He said it was 10 times the size inside as outside. And Terry Lovelace has said the same thing. A bunch of UFO experiencers have said the same thing. So I'm saying, well, are they having a UFO abduction, or are they in the spirit world? And the other thing he talked about in his experience was, he says, my mother takes me in this building, and there's a big, huge table. She takes me to the far end of the room, and there's this big, huge table there, and there's these crystals in the table. And the crystals are coming out of the table. And if you look at the crystal, everybody's got their own crystal. So, Jimmy, when you die, you'll have this crystal, and you look in the crystal, and you can see all your past lives. You can see your lives, and you plan your future lives. And as soon as he said that you look at the crystal at a certain angle, I'm thinking, that's UFO Cover-Up Live, 1988.
Right.
Richard Doty says the most amazing thing he saw was the aliens had this crystal. And you took the crystal, and you looked at it at a certain angle, and you could see the history of the world. And so you see these parallels that are crossing over. And that's when I did this contact modality book. And so I'm coming to the sort of the conclusion that the world of UFOs, the world as we know it, is a lot less physical than people think it is. It's a lot more spiritual than people think it is. It's like a probably 100,000, a million times more complex. When I look at the UFO phenomena and I start looking at people, their actual stories and this kind of stuff, I start to realize like it's not going to be, there may be an ET component to it, but it's going to be much more complex than ETs.
I've seen the cover for the book. Is it out?
It was just out yesterday, and today I just put, a couple of minutes ago, I just put the first 50 pages of the book on there, because it's a very, very long book.
And you co-wrote it with
channeling and mediumship and alien abduction. It goes through all the different modalities where people claim that they were in a different world. They were picking up material or whatever. So I put up 50 pages, and that basically explains the beginning. What I think is actually going on. How does this happen? And what the basic concept is you have a right brain, left brain, and your left brain ego keeps you in the physical world. And if you can stop the chitter chatter in your head,
right,
whether it's through meditation, through a head injury, through an alien abduction or whatever, you can suddenly be in this field and you can pick up material. For example, 40% of all the free survey, and you've interviewed Ray Hernandez, 40% of all people that claim they had the UFO experience, that have been abducted or had the experience, say they knew the answer to everything in the universe at one point during the experience. And when they came back, they forgot it. Near-death experience people say exactly the same thing. And near-death experience, for example, will tell you, the people who have near-death experiences will say they drain batteries. They can't wear watches.
Right.
They wreck electronic equipment when they touch it. That's Chris Bledsoe. That's exactly, even Kathy Martin, they did a study on this where someone said, I think I was abducted last night, and they would measure them, and they would have this field that they could burn out electronics, or the lights would go off and stuff like that. Near-death experience is the same thing. So what I'm looking at now is all these crossovers and saying, maybe this is all the same thing. And we're just looking at it from different perspectives, and that it's the same thing. But the key thing is, as you said, how's it going? The thing that really blew me away, and the guy in LA who got it in the float tank, he was so embarrassed about this vision that he got, that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, that we choose everything that happens to us, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and we it's how we play our cards. He didn't even tell his wife. He didn't tell anybody. I was the first guy he told. He said, I can't believe I saw that, I had this vision. And so in the reincarnation world, it comes down to the whole idea. And I remember I asked Kathy Martin about this. There's the whole thing with the UFO abductee people, where they say, are they being taken against their will, or is there a soul contract? And I remember I asked everybody. I asked Barbara Lamb. I asked, Mary Rodwell. And then I asked Kathy Martin. I said, Kathy, what do you think? She says, I didn't know, so I got myself regressed back to birth. And I actually heard the words come out of my mouth. I chose to do this. And so there's this whole idea that we like to play the victim. We like to say, oh, I'm having a terrible life, and you got a better life than me, and I'm being treated unfairly. And in the end, it may be this, almost what Jacques Vallée said. It may be just a giant kabuki theater, and the only message is we aren't alone.
Does it indicate to you, oh, by the way, so the book is out. Where you co-wrote it with Desta, right?
Yeah. Desta actually did a lot of the modalities. So she did all the editing. She put it up. She arranged the cover, all that sort of stuff. She does a lot of that stuff for me because she's younger than me and knows the technology stuff that I don't know. But she does channeling, and she's one of the ones where she learned this thing. So what the whole idea, the concept is, so you're in the alpha state most of the time, right? And when your eyes are awake, you're thinking whatever. And then when you want to go to sleep, you have to go from the alpha state down through the theta state into the delta state. That's when you're sleeping at the bottom. And it's the theta state is where these people pick it up. So once you shut the left brain down, you're in the theta state, and you can suddenly, leave your body or have these experiences or whatever. So Desta was able to do this. And so when I first met her, she said they had taught her how to do this. And so I would say to her, okay, ask them this, ask them that. And that's the way I figured is, if you have these things where people can get in the field, why would you not take advantage of this? Because it's almost like, you have people who do radio broadcasts, and then you have Jimmy Church. I mean, there's people at different levels of how they do it. So there are some channelers who are really not that good, and there are some channelers that are really good. Like when you talk to Bashar, you realize like this guy ain't making this stuff up. He's at some different level than the rest of the people. And so what I try to do is I try to tap into that rather than using the rational analytical mind to try to figure it out. I figure these people know something. I'm going to find out who these people are and how did they get in the field and how far did they get in the field? How much were they almost like through water? How close did they get to the surface of the water where there's lots of light where they could see stuff? Because we're down at the bottom in the darkness. And then use that. If you have experiencers who say they can heal people, why would we not study them? If there's people say 42% of all experiencers say they have mathematical, scientific, or technical material in their head that they did not learn in school, why would you not talk to these people? So that's basically where I'm chasing now, is to try to track down these people who seem to have ripped the veil and gotten on the other side.
Have you found, and we've talked about this before, but on other subjects, but have you found that everything is connected, right? Everything is connected. And when we're talking about these different ideas inside of our community, Grant, science and physics and quantum, they've been pursuing this on an analytical sense through algorithms, going back to Isaac Newton, right? They're chasing these same things that we are questioning and experiencing in our community too. Everything is connected, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the name of my publishing company. It's all connected. It's all one word. It's all connected. So yeah, it is. And that's the whole thing. And you start looking at, we sort of make these mistakes. I had two download experiences. One was in 2012. One was in about 2017, which is a very complex download. And it basically was giving me the thing that said, Is the world made out of consciousness or made out of nuts and bolts? If it's made out of nuts and bolts, that's one world with certain rules. But if it's not, if it's made out of consciousness, it's a completely different world with different rules. So it was giving me is it this or that?
Right.
And one of the things that I think we sort of mistake is we still are stuck in this sort of Newtonian world where we're all mixed up. So you'd get a thing where you say, time and space don't exist. Einstein basically, we know this. We know this is probably going to be true, that it's just an impression in our head. And yet we talk about planets out there, or you go to the thing with John Wheeler and another physicist where they're talking about there's only one electron. And you get into quantum physics and you start to realize the world is just not what we think it is. This idea that it may be all within ourselves, that there is no out there. Where are you actually seeing? And that's where I start going after these kids who are able to look through blindfolds. So the whole thing is, how are these kids able to see, or they teach blind people to see? And the thing is, have they recreated, like when you have an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience and you're floating at the corner of the room in the hospital room, these people can see and they can hear. People say, well, the brain's still alive. It doesn't matter. The eyes are closed. It doesn't matter. You cannot see. So they're seeing with something else. And then these people, you see that people have started to develop these techniques And I think we're so far along the road in terms of people starting to understand how this works and the experiments and stuff. There's just no money in it. But I think we've moved a long way in terms of understanding the role of consciousness in this thing. And I keep saying over and over again, I said, until people understand the role of consciousness in this thing, we are going to be just banging our head against the wall. We've done it for 73 years. We're looking at sightings which tell you one thing, that UFOs exist. Yeah, it's real. Or as Jacques Vallée said about Nimitz, it's a UFO sighting 15 years ago. It's time to get over it. We got to move to the next step and try to figure out, how do they get here? Or even if you've seen the interview where Kit Green is trying to get Jim Peniston's DNA a couple of years ago, and Jim Peniston said, "I'm not letting this guy out of the room. He's going to tell me what the heck's going on here." And what Kit Green says to him is, "We're trying to figure out how do they pop in and how do they pop out." Well, I've known that for a long time. People think they're sort of flying here, but anybody who knows enough and talked to enough experiencers or people like Mission Rama people realize they're popping in and they're popping out. They come in as a ball of light and they turn into a being, and then they go back to a ball of light and they disappear. And that's why I'm saying it's way more complex than we think it is. We think it's sort of like nuts and bolts. Or if you go to the 50 people and everybody has said the same thing. When I did Orange County, I don't know if you know the guy who's the F-16 pilot there. He came and he told me his story. And he said, they said, "Tell him your story about flying the craft." And I said, "You flew the craft? You flew the craft?" He said, "Yeah." And he said, "But it's just a dream." I said, "Everybody says it's a dream. Tell me." And then he said, "Oh, he's a pilot." And I said, "Well, my father's a pilot. My son's a pilot." And then he ended up telling me he's an F-16 retired U.S. Air Force colonel, flew in Iraq. And he told me the same story. And the whole thing is that the craft is alive. You become one with the craft, and whatever you think is what the craft does. And you can get stories where somebody like Ron Johnson tells a story where they ask, "Where do you want to go?" And he says, "I want to see the Milky Way from a distance." And they say it'll be a very intense G-force. He said it lasted for 1 second. He looked out the window and there was the Milky Way in the distance. We do not have the technology, no matter what anybody says. This is really complex. They are like light years ahead of us in terms of what's going on. And I maintain that it is not going to be as physical as people think it is.
Now, you brought up John Wheeler, we have Wheeler and Everett, and maybe, today, like Leonard Susskind, that if they were always leaning towards something more spiritual, trying to figure out what consciousness was. Very controversial to do in the physics community, as you know. Very agnostic, atheist. For them to lean in that direction kind of freaks everybody out. But certainly that is where physics is leading them. They can answer a lot of questions, but they can't get to the fundamental answers of what consciousness is and what entanglement may mean with all of that, right?
Yeah, and yet we've known since 1950. I remember, I don't know if you saw the thing where I was talking to Nick Pope, and Nick Pope said, "Well, consciousness is not really my thing. I really don't know." But the Canadians knew, so it's almost like the Brits were put in the naughty corner. They didn't know what was going on. The Canadians knew in November of 1950 that consciousness was involved, and that was 2 years before anybody talked to an alien. That was before Adamski and Williamson and all these guys, where the Canadians wrote the top secret memo, said, "Flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. There's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush that are trying to figure out the modus operandi. It's of tremendous significance to the Americans." And we were also told by Americans that other things such as mental phenomena might be involved. And they aren't doing very well because they said if we're working on it, they're willing to exchange credentials and talk to us. So the Canadians knew in 1950. The question is, how did they know? Before anybody talked to an alien, now we know they're telepathic. How did they know? Well, potentially because in Roswell, they had a live alien, and the alien was talking in people's heads. And they went, "Oh my God, this thing's talking in our heads." So they've known this. Same as when Jan Harzen talks to Ben Rich, and he says, how do they get here? I need to know. And he turns around and he says, "What do you know about ESP?" And he said, "Well, it means everything in time and space is connected." He said, "That's how it works." Eric Walker, head of Penn State University, Assistant Secretary of Defense, the guy who started DARPA and the Institute for Defense Analysis, was a chairman, the top military think tank, said to us, "What do you know about ESP? Unless you know about ESP, you will not be taken in by the control group." Very few people understand how it works. And then you take Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge goes to Lockheed. He's in the top secret SCIF, and the head scientist says, "How does it work? What's it all about?" And then he says, "Well, I think consciousness is involved." And he said, this head scientist said, "Now you're talking." and couldn't shut him up for 45 minutes, wanted to talk about consciousness. So they understand that consciousness is involved, but it's so far beyond what we've got in terms of understanding how does it fit in. And that's where I'm actually doing a paper now. I always have this sort of debate. People say, the government's got this technology. Like Linda Howe was given this material from somebody that we've been trading with star systems since the 1970s or whatever. And I'm looking and I'm going, no, I don't think so. If you look at Eric Davis, the debate between, you've seen the emails between Eric Davis and Sarfati.
Right.
And they're sitting there talking about the mathematics for flying the Nimitz, the tic-tac. And at one point, Davis says, you're connecting dots that don't exist. Go back to consciousness physics and quit ruining physics, or however he phrased it. But he used the word consciousness physics. And so if these two guys are arguing about floating this little layered piece of metal, they ain't got anything. And Hal Puthoff was asked. He said, no, I haven't seen the technology. I just released an interview with Richard Doty. Richard Doty talks about Hal Puthoff being brought pieces of the craft, and he couldn't get them to work. And if you talk to Melinda Leslie will say they give them to experiencers too. And they say, can you make this work? And the experiencer can make the piece of thing work. And that they, we got another one. They know who's an experiencer based upon whether they can make this piece of material. So I start looking, I look at all these guys, Ron Pandolfi, I don't deal with him, but I deal with people around him. And he says basically, yes, this phenomena is for real, but that we don't have anything. All these people are loons, crooks, and worse. That they're just trying to make money off this thing. And so I start looking at these very high-level guys. I have yet to see a high-level guy who says, yeah, we got it. Because every time you look, and I've followed these guys since the 1980s, like Hal Puthoff, Kit Green. Kit Green actually was involved in talking to Dr. Eric Walker. So was Hal Puthoff. And that was my guy. That was Eric Walker. That was the investigation we did from 1983 on. So you start to see this thing where I think Eric Davis said they put it on the shelf in 1989, and George Knapp seemed to confirm that as well. That every couple of years they try to bring it out, but it's so far advanced that the idea that we've got stuff where it's 10 times the size inside as it is outside, or that you can fly a craft with your mind, I don't think we have. We have bioboards. Where you can take a rat brain. I don't know if you've seen these experiments where they take a rat brain and they fly an F-22 simulator with 10,000 neurons from a rat brain. They can do that kind of stuff, but it's always going to be biological. And that's the whole idea behind the craft. It's not putting consciousness into a craft. It's all consciousness. So you take a bioboard and you can fly an F-22 simulator. And that was 2004. So that's almost 16 years ago that was in the white world. So that kind of stuff they can do. That being a symbiotic with a plane. But you're always going to need biology. You're always going to need a living organism that moves it.
Now, I wanted to ask you before we get to the break, when we bring up some of the, the names in the boys' club, Pandolfi and Semivan and Kit and Sarfati, Puthoff, Eric Davis, that all of them seem to be asking questions. But it doesn't seem like any of them have concrete answers. Are they chasing the answers? Are they themselves compartmentalized? Are they not actually in the know that most of the community would like to think that, that's where they are at? Because they all have the connections to the CIA. They all have the connections going back to SRI. They've been involved in the subject since the 1970s. They've been in the boys' club together for a very long time. But are they actually still looking for answers, or do they have them?
That's where the more I look at it, the more I don't think they have the answers. I think they know more than you and I know. They may know certain aspects, but in terms of having it, there was this famous story with this core story that Kit Green, Hal Puthoff, and Jacques Vallée get together at a Denny's restaurant, if you've heard that story. And they say, this is the 1980s, and they're saying, there's lots of garbage going around, lots of stories. What do we know for sure? And what they concluded was, we're being visited by something, we have crash material, and we're not able to back engineer it. And that's what I've heard. And in fact, the Wilson document, which has now been verified as having come from the Edgar Mitchell files, which is where exactly I said it came from. Mm-hmm. You'll see at the very end, Wilson, the head intelligence guy in the United States, cannot get a briefing, but some other guy gets a briefing, and that guy says, we can't back engineer this stuff. We're not getting anywhere with it. And that's the whole thing, because it has this consciousness connection to it. that they've stumbled on this whole thing. So these guys, what I believe they're doing, and a lot of them are experiencers, like Semi Van's an experiencer, Gary Nolan's an experiencer, Jacques Vallée's an experiencer, Sarfati indicates that Hal Puthoff might be an experiencer, Sarfati's an experiencer, and you get these guys who are trying to get out of the black world, because what the problem is, according to what Doty told me, is that you have a craft and you break the craft into pieces, and that's how you do a scientific problem. You break it into small pieces, you hand it out to different labs, but the labs aren't talking to each other, and that's why you always hear them talking about Tom DeLonge and these guys. It's all stovepiped, and we got to get it out of being stovepiped, because nobody's talking to each other, because everybody's got the pieces, but they're trying to get it into the white world, so that you can all these people, this cosmic club or whatever, so these people can talk with each other and how this stuff works. And that's why they've gone to Congress, and that's why they've done this spin for the fear thing. So you're not going to get any money, because during the Obama administration, Leslie Kean was doing it with John Podesta, and they were doing the whole thing. It's a threat to airline traffic, and I guess Congress just went like, "Get out of here, you stupid idiots!" And now they're doing the thing. It's going to be a threat. We're going to get taken over and stuff. And then they get the money, so they get the fear thing. Congress gives them the money, and they get this money for the white world, so they can work on it. And of course, everybody's going to have a job. Everybody's going to walk around with a suitcase full of money. You're going to have patents. You're going to have all this kind of stuff. So they're trying to move it into the white world, which is a good thing. But then the thing is, what are they going to do? I mean, you take Trump's latest speech about going to Mars, and we're going to have great new weapons and stuff. And that's my fear, is that we're going to use this for weapons rather than to make a better mankind.
Now, in 60 seconds, Grant, we have that, right? We have the core group of the boys club, and then we have what has to be volumes of data and knowledge of the real stuff inside of the Pentagon and maybe the CIA and so forth, Area 51. Then we have that. How does the boys club get access to that? Or is that just shut off forever? Can you do that in 60 seconds?
Well, I think they've all got connections. If you hear the latest interview that was released with Eric Davis, he says he's still a contractor on ATIP. And Eric Davis worked in intelligence when he was very young. He was in Korea working on intelligence. And then he worked for the Air Force on anti-gravity, but technical stuff related to this for the Air Force. And so they're all sort of in the field, and they've got little pieces of the story. It's the general story that they're missing. So they according to, and even what Richard told you that he had seen the document, the Wilson document, before from somebody who already had it. Mm-hmm. And he was told there was at least one body. And that's the whole idea about the alien autopsy. So even though they've got craft material and they've got bodies, the thing is, it's one thing to have it, like take a watch in the 16th century and turn it around and make technology out of it. That's where we're missing the thing. So they've got little bits and pieces. They know more than you and I. But in terms of how this thing goes together, I don't think they know, because they're not talking. And Hal Puthoff confirmed, To the Stars is not talking about consciousness. And as long as they're not talking about consciousness, they're just trying to get money, and they're trying to do something that's still not going to work.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. I told you it's going to be one of those conversations. You stay right there on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with Grant after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I'm a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to forbiddenknowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.tv. Again, visit forbiddenknowledge.tv today.
Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, Fade or not, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gradual Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Grant. That's real easy. At Grant Cameron. We've got everything up in Twitter. Grant hangs out in social media, man. He's always causing trouble. And Grant, this year, 2020, everything got canceled except we're going to be going up to Laughlin, Nevada, down to Laughlin, Nevada for you for the StarWorks UFOs and Artificial Intelligence Conference coming up in November. You excited?
Yeah, well, Canadians, when it's 40 below, are always excited to go to Laughlin, Nevada. It's
no question about it. And this is the thing for me and you, where we go out all year long and attend these conferences and get to hang out and break bread and talk to everybody. It's so much fun. That's been taken away from us. I'm really itching to get to Laughlin, Nevada, so we can start to get back to normal. I don't know about you, but I need to see some faces.
Yeah, and that's the big thing people don't realize in the UFO community is that a lot of people, almost everybody, it's almost a pattern. People will come to me, experiencers, and say, they'll tell their story, and then they'll say, oh, and my kid thinks I'm crazy, and I'm not allowed to see my grandkids. And I go, that's the pattern. That's exactly the way it is. And in fact, I had the near-death experience. I said to the one woman with the near-death experience, she said she did some of the major work for Jeffrey Long's book that was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And I said to her, she said, my father was an atheist. My mother was an atheist. My father didn't care about religion. So I said, what about your kids? What do your kids think? No, they think I'm crazy. No. It's like, well, it's just like the UFO community. It's like, and it's almost like generational. It's like my kid, the same thing. That's why I'm putting my stuff in an archives, and I always encourage people to do it. If you've been in the field and you've got some material, you should document your story and then you should put it in an archives. Because usually my kid will throw stuff in the garbage. He has no interest whatsoever. And you always think that it'll pass on. And Wilbur Smith, who ran the Canadian government UFO program, was the same thing. His kids had no interest whatsoever. It's the general pattern. So when you get these conferences, what you see is people go to these conferences and it's like long lost friends. And it's like, whoa, hugging and kissing. And everybody's that's their family, because this is people who will listen to them. Or you see these experiencer things where they have in the morning. Remember how the big UFO Congress or stuff, they have them in the back room and they have them at 8 o'clock in the morning, because everybody's sort of afraid to be seen. And so it's an hour and a half before the first lecture starts. And the place is packed. It's like 150 people, and people are crying, and they come from all around the country. And that's because this is the community where you can talk to people, you can share stories, and nobody thinks you're a nutcase.
One of the things that I enjoy, and I don't know how I've had the ability to do this, but going to conferences as often as we do, where you have, in some cases, 500 attendees, 1,000 attendees, 5,000 attendees, I know everybody, right? Yeah. I know every attendee. We see them over and over again, and just like you, it's one big family, and I miss it. And for those out there that have never been to a conference, that's why I encourage you to go. First off, it's just fun. You get to say whatever you want. Somebody is going to listen, and you are able to hang out with like-minded people that more than likely your family doesn't listen, or they don't have a concern, or your coworkers. You go to a UFO conference, and it's like being at the barbershop, right? You can just go in and say whatever you want.
And people are kind of surprised, because I can talk very fast and talk for hours on end. But when I'm here in Winnipeg, I really don't talk to anybody. And people are really surprised when they hear that I can go days without talking to anybody, because they're just, nobody's into it. And so you get the situation where you get sort of ostracized. And somebody said to me one time, they said, you really don't have any friends. And I said, what? Are you kidding me? I don't have any friends. I may not have any friends here around Winnipeg. But I said, I can go to any state in the United States. I can go to most countries, and I can call up if I get in trouble, I can call up in LA and call up about 10 people. I would know. And that's what people don't realize. Your friends are all over the place, and it's a different sort of community. And it's a lot of it's on the internet, but it's people and it's surprising when you start listing how many people you actually know. It is staggering how many people we actually do know.
Yeah, when I have somebody come up to me at a conference and go, "Hey, Jimmy, it's me, UFO Bob on Twitter." I'm like, dude, how you doing? You've been talking to him for years, right? And we know everything about each other's family and life. And I see the same thing going on inside of the UFO community, because they hang out. They know each other, not the researchers, not the authors. The community knows each other too. And it's great to see them all get together and laugh and have fun. I wanted to ask you, let's circle back to something. When you mention Symbiotic and I would have to, I speculated on this a lot, Grant, that if we're dealing with a technology from somebody that can get here, remember, we haven't, allegedly, we don't know for sure, but we haven't gotten there yet, right? Yeah. We don't have starships. We don't have, we're not, that I know of, we're not jumping into stargates and wormholes yet. Maybe we have in the past. But that being said, they are definitely getting here. So we're dealing with the technology and an intelligence that, quite frankly, we shouldn't understand. There's no way that we can have a concept with that, which is fine. But if we're talking about something like a symbiotic control and communication, that only makes sense to me. It only makes sense. Now, would we understand that? I don't know. But would that limit our ability to fly their craft? Right? Let's say we do a crash retrieval or we're given a craft. Does that mean we can't fly it? I mean, right? Is that where I'm...
Well, the analogy I would use is your cell phone. So in order to get my cell phone to turn on, you need my fingerprint.
Right.
And that's just one step removed, but you need the consciousness. So when you see, like, for example, Chris Bledsoe. So I say, Chris, how do you fly craft? And he says, okay, you go in, he said, and there's this pedestal standing there. And it's like a beehive pedestal. And they tell him to put his hand on the thing. So people are either putting their hand on a ball or like a beehive, they're putting it on a flat panel, or they're putting it on a thing on the wall. And once you touch it, they'll all describe the same thing. They'll say, as soon as I touched the craft, I became one with the craft. Mm-hmm. The craft was alive. I and the craft were together. It's like I was the craft. And whatever I thought is what the craft did. So it's that idea. It's like the putting your hand on the cell phone and making the cell phone turn on. So what you need in order to turn the UFO on is you need the consciousness. You need the handprint to turn that craft on. It's done with conscious, turned on with consciousness, and it's flown with consciousness. There is no steering wheel. Even if you go back to what's his name? Cat Stevens. Cat Stevens, the famous musician, was abducted. He said quite clearly, and he was abducted in London. He wrote 2 songs about his abduction. One was called Longer Boats. One was called Freezing Steel. And I believe the song Freezing Steel was written in 1972. He said, I was on the ship of freezing steel, the ship without the guiding wheel. And so you can ask all 50 people, they'll say exact. It's like they're reading off a cue card. It's unbelievable. They'll never say there's a control panel. There's not a steering wheel or whatever. It's always this hand thing. And it's always consciousness. It's always becoming one with the craft. And then there's these bizarre little things that make you know that they're telling the truth. For example, the guy, the F-16 guy out of L.A., same as I have a guy, 747 United Airlines pilot, they'll say this thing. They'll come in the craft, and there's people behind them. And they don't know if it's beings or if they don't know if it's human beings. And they'll stand in the middle of the craft. They all tell the same story. They go, I'm standing in the middle of the craft, and I don't know what to do. And then I hear this voice behind me say, go ahead and do it. And then the guy says, I don't know what to do. And then they say, you know what to do, just do it. And then like the F-16 guy goes and puts his hands on this panel. And he said, as soon as he's got his hands on the panel, he said it was like suction cups on an F-16. He said, suddenly, boom, he's flying the craft. And he's going, oh my God, he's flying the craft. And then he takes one hand off the panel and he's waiting for the thing to stall. And then nothing happens. Then he takes his other hand off. He keeps it a couple inches above the panel so he can slam it back down if the flying saucer does. But they can take their hand off, but they become one. So you get the situation like, if you remember Chris Bledsoe, the story with John Alexander. So John Alexander, and that's what happens, is these government officials go and they try to contact people like Bledsoe. How are you getting contact? How is this coming in? Who are you talking to? And that's what you got to do. You got to look at the experiencers as to what they're doing. So John goes down there, and Chris shows him around, shows him where the abduction took place, all the different things that happened, and they're standing there, and all of a sudden Chris says, they're here. And John Alexander says, well, how do you know they're here? I just know they're here. I know they're here. And he said, then John says something, boom, and this thing appears above them and goes flying off into the sky. The reason that they can tell they're here, a lot of abductees will say the same thing. I'm in the morning. I'm trying to figure out, they're coming today. I know they're coming. Because once you've been one with the craft, you vibrate the same as the craft. You have the vibration. So when that vibration's in the area, you can sense the vibration. And that's why I think that people blow out light bulbs. That's why they have electronic problems, is because you're at a higher frequency. They take you to this higher frequency. You come back, and then you've got this vibration thing that is affecting electronics. So when the craft is in the area, and a lot of them will tell, that I did the orb thing. I don't know if you saw the orb panel. I've got these people who've got like thousands of orb photographs. And I always say to them, are you actually shooting the orb? Do you see the orb flying around? No, I just sense it. I know it's there. They tell me to go outside and I know where to shoot. They tell me what part of the sky, and I shoot, and all these things appear on the film. So it's this idea that we're all, the whole thing, it's all one thing. It's all connected. We are all one thing. We're all vibrating. And if you can get the signal, if you can get rid of the chitter chatter in the brain and pick up the signal, and that's why people talk about meditation. That's why you have that sort of thing where you're raising the vibration. Like the Mission Rama protocol is you do the mantras. They're raising vibration so that the being, or if you take seances, the same thing. Seances are the same thing. They sing songs. They raise the vibration for the beings to come in. They can make that contact. And it's all vibration. It's all energy. There is no nuts and bolts, and we're making these false assumptions that it's nuts and bolts. But I have another guy. We're helping him publish his book. He's a guy out of Israel, and he had the beings. His beings were like green beings that looked like grays, and he talked about them leaving. He said when they left, and they all held hands in a circle, and they started to make this circle, and it went round and round and round, and went faster and faster. And he said suddenly they turned into light, and then the light got smaller and smaller until it was a little tiny ball, and then just boop, and it was gone. So the question is it flesh? Is it nuts and bolts, or is it a ball of light? And if it's a ball of light, does it eat bacon, eggs, toast, and coffee in the morning? So you can see it's moving into this thing, almost like Bashar says. If you remember, Bashar says, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world. And that's the whole deal. It's this world of musicians who pick up songs from the field, or people who are savants who are able to do these calendar calculations. That there's all this stuff is in the field. All the answers are there. Near-death experiences and abductees tell the same story. At one point during the experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. And I'll say to them, like, how do you know you knew everything in the universe? How do you know there wasn't something number 7, 8, 9 on the far side of the universe they forgot to tell you about? And because I had the download experience, they'll say the same thing. They'll say, I'm not sure. I just know. And that's the thing. It comes with absolute certainty. I know I was there. It was more real than the real world when I came here. This is the dream. And they're picking up this material. And then I'd say, well, how long did it last? How long did you know everything? And they said it was exactly like a dream. And I said, I'm going to remember, and I'm coming back, I'm going to remember. And as they came back, it was like a dream, just and it's disappearing. And they said by the end of the first day, all they could remember was at one point they knew the answer to everything in the universe.
Now, it's about positive intention, and this is what works for me when I'm with a group of people. Grant, don't laugh, comedy, laughter, pastrami sandwiches.
Yeah,
I can call them in, right? Which says to me that ET is hungry and they like a good stand-up routine. But it's about positive intention, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a way, like there's different modalities. For example, Gary Nolan, from the guys doing the DNA stuff with the experiencers from Stanford University.
Right.
He says, I don't know how it works, but I know how to make it work. And he says, I go through all the problems. This is the way the laser was invented. This is the way the hologram was invented. You go through all the problems, you work through it all, you analyze it, whatever. And then he says, I write it down, the question, and I put it beside the bed, and I wake up in the morning and I have the answer in my head. That's a guy, runs a genetics lab at Stanford University. If you take Whitley Strieber says, I do this sensing exercise. It goes through his mind, finger, toe, and he goes around he does it twice a day for half an hour each time. And he can tap in and he picks it up. If you take a look at this Tyler D guy, who I've met a couple of times, this Tyler D guy from American Cosmic, when I met him with Chris Bledsoe in a meeting at a cottage in Pennsylvania. He told me the story about this invention that he got that came into his head. If you read the book American Cosmic, they talk about he gets brought to the Pentagon and the one-star general yells out, who came up with this idea? And they all point at Tyler D. And he's figures like he's in lots of trouble. But he came up with this invention. And because I was in the download thing, there you go. When I was in the I had my own download, so I was very interested. So I said, well, how did this happen? He said, I can tell you what, Grant. All I remember, the night before I woke up with that idea in my head in the morning, the last thing I remember the night before was a hooded figure standing at the end of the bed. I said, a hooded figure? And I said, could you see its face? He said, no, I couldn't see its face. And nobody can see the face in the hooded figure, and that's the wisdom being. So then I said, well, you go to LA all the time. He works with kids in operating rooms. He works on, because it's all medical stuff. And I said, well, you should go to Yvonne Smith. you should go to, and we actually had it arranged. I had Yvonne Smith. She knew who he was. I said, go, Yvonne Smith will regress you, and you can find out what the being said. Now, what he says is, his modality is, he says, I sleep 8 hours, I get up, then I go to bed, back to bed for an hour, then I get up and I get a glass of water, and I go out and sit out in the sun, and I drink this big glass of water in the sun, and they start talking to me. And that's the thing. So there's these different modalities. People are figuring out how to tap in. And Whitley Strieber's, he says, I never drink coffee, I never drink alcohol. Whereas Whitley Strieber says, oh yeah, I drink alcohol and I only sleep 4 hours a day. So it's totally different modalities. But almost like Bashar says, they're permission slips. Whatever works for you, run it. Just do it. And that's, so I look at people, and the same when they look at Chris Bledsoe. That's why he has like the president and the CIA and everybody's coming to him, because he's got some sort of modality, and they're trying to figure out, because the government isn't talking to the beings. And so because they cannot talk to the intelligence, they have to talk to the people who the intelligence is talking to. And that makes sense. Or even, I remember Betty Andreasen, they were complaining, her husband was complaining to me about the fact that they had these low-flying helicopters around the house, and they were tapping his computer and stuff. And I said, did Betty ever get the drawings from the craft? Oh yeah, she says she drew all how the craft flies and stuff. And I said, well, are you surprised that they're watching you? Come on, of course they're going to watch you, because you're tapped in. They're trying to figure out who are you talking to? And that's the whole thing behind the Millabs. If you talk to Melinda Leslie, they bring you on and they say, who are you talking to? What are they telling you? And they're trying to figure it out, because the beings are not talking to the government.
Now, there's another part to this. You mentioned this earlier. And I've noticed this because it's happened to me hundreds of times, where I will take out my night vision, right? And I'll look up at the sky at a specific. Now, I've got the whole sky up here, right? I can go anywhere with the night vision, Grant. And I will go up and go to it and see something at that moment. You know, I'm not looking over here where there's nothing. I'll be drawn to a spot in the sky and see something at that instant. That tells me, and I don't know what it is, I don't know how I'm tapping in, but I am moving to that section of the sky and seeing something at that moment.
Yeah, that's the thing is that people will report this, especially the orb people. I'll say to them, are you filming the orb? Do you see it? And they say, no, I just know where to shoot. And this thing appears on the camera. And I have a business guy, big time business guy here in Winnipeg, and he had two sightings. One was at a lake where he's watching a movie, and it's sort of like a UFO movie. He's not really into UFOs, but it's a UFO movie. 10 minutes before the end of the movie, he suddenly gets the idea, I should go out and skywatch. And like he's going to miss the end of the movie. So he gets up and he says, and you should take your laser. He goes on, there's a laser, and he says the thing goes flying by. It's like 50 feet away, and he hits it with a laser, and it's just blown away. And then he's back home again, and later on, it's maybe a year later, he has another one. He lives on the river. This thing's coming down the river, and he sees it, and he's calling his wife, get out here, get out here. And she comes out, and she's looking at the thing, and then later he's in a party or something, and he says, I saw this, it was an orange ball, it was all like it was on fire, like it was on oil and stuff, it was on fire. And she says, that's not what it was. And he said, yeah, that's what it was. And she says, no, it was a silver craft. And he said, it was? She said, yeah, it was a silver craft. And then he's got some money. So he goes after psychics and people like that, high-level psychics. One girl who worked for a guy who used to run the Air Force remote viewing program. She does work with him. It's not government work, but he hires her, and he says, and he's asking her all these questions. Then he says, okay, so I had these 2 UFO sightings. He says, so where were they from? And she goes, what do you mean where they're from? They weren't from anywhere. He said, well, yeah, I saw them. He describes this. No, you sent them. You sent them to yourself to wake yourself up. And that's the whole thing where you start looking at this loop about, are you the person that's behind the actual experience? Is there actually an out there, or are we manifesting this whole thing? Like the whole idea of the world where it's all just a big giant computer game, and we may be the ones that are actually manifesting this thing, and we think it's an outside force, and we have more. And in fact, you see this thing with experiencers where you go into the thing where there's a near-death experience or the abduction experience. Everybody's describing something different, and the concept comes down to that: if you are fearful, you're going to have a fearful experience. You're going to see grays. But if you have these people who are like love and light people, they're going to see these beings who are like light beings and stuff like this. And your message is going to be different. And it's the idea, because one of the modalities I do is in psychedelics. So I do the John Hopkins psilocybin thing, and that's what they tell you. Same thing as at Stanford University. They do the remote viewing thing. So when you're in this very plastic worworld.
Wait. Slow down. What did you just say? You do the psilocybin thing.
They've done research on psilocybin.
No, you are not doing psilocybin.
No.
Okay.
I study the research that they've done. Yeah, no.
Let's clear that up.
I wouldn't mind doing psilocybin. But anyway, so they do the thing, and what it is when you are in this world, when you are in the UFO experience, abduction, whatever it is, it's very, very plastic. It's very easy. The things are manipulated, and they know how to manipulate things. Things aren't as solid as you think they are. So what they do in the psilocybin, or whether it's the lucid dream research that was done at Stanford University, is when you're in the experience, you can change things in the experience. So what they do in John Hopkins is they try to stop you from having the fearful experience. So once you start getting scared, they have two people in the room who grab your hand and say, "It's okay. Go towards the being, whatever the being is. Go towards it. Give it unconditional love." And it will turn into a positive being. And you hear this over and over again. It turns into a positive being. And that's what we think. It's a very solid world. Everything's solid. And the more you learn about quantum physics, you start to realize it's not solid. There are no colors. There's probably no time and space. It's very, very plastic. And we're just in this world where our left brain is making us think that everything's solid. And when you get into that world, you start to realize, like, oh, it's not the world I thought it was. And they are just able to do it. They know things. They're not magical. They just know how the universe actually works.
At Starworks in November, Grant, you're going to be there. We're going to do 2 nights of sky watching. Yeah. So you've got to come out with this. And now it requires comedy, humor, and pastrami sandwiches and night vision goggles. Are you down for it? You want to come hang out with us?
I'm down for it. Yeah, we'll have some good times. Sometimes I get frustrated with sky watches because people are sort of arguing about some light in the sky or whatever, and I always say, "Man, if you saw what I saw in 1975, you'd be going to bed just like me." And I turn around and go to bed. 'Cause, I mean, I didn't see a light in the sky in 1975. I was pretty close. I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about what I was looking at.
Yeah, let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Another great conversation with Mr. Cameron on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Humor, laughter, pastrami sandwiches. Grant Cameron. Can't lose. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Introducing the new Surfer Music app. Listen, Fadernauts, you know I love my music. This is my go-to for all things notes. The Surfer app is a brand new concept in music listening. Surfer is free, providing unlimited access to thousands of live streaming radio stations. Surfer is an exciting, interactive listening experience. Discovery and surprise are built right in. Surfer is your destination to discover and rediscover great live streaming music. It features high-quality audio streams, free access to music from thousands of live streaming radio stations, unlimited listening, unlimited skipping. You get a music visualizer, and you can also select your favorite channels. Get it at the Apple App Store or Google Play. Just search Surfer Music or click on the Surfer banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Go Beckley Teppy.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the paranormal radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the paranormal radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. And if you ever miss a live show like this one, you miss a live show, get our podcast. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner. It is just $2 per month. We have over 1,200 archive shows there. The best ones are any show with Grant Cameron, guaranteed. Hey, Grant, somebody just made a comment here. Grant is always a good value. He talks so fast, you get 4 hours worth of conversation in 2 hours. Oh, that is so funny. I want to kind of jump around a little bit, but I want to pick your brain. The Holloman Air Force Base film.
Yeah,
we know that the government is sitting on lots of stuff like that. Holloman is something that we know about pretty directly, from Bob Ebenegger. But do you think the Holloman, look, the 3 videos that are out there now, whatever you see in those videos is up to you as an individual. I don't necessarily see anything ET, but I don't think that's the point. The Pentagon did officially release them like 2 or 3 times now. But that's not the good stuff. Right? The good stuff is like Holloman. Are we ever going to get to see those films?
It's going to be a while because they did, and I always talk about how they do this. I mean, they always have plausible deniability. Whether it's the Nimitz film or the Holloman film, they sort of put it there and then they pull it back. So with the Holloman film, and this is one of the things, if you look at these 2 documents that we put out, the Wilson leak and the alien autopsy document, both these were reports to Bob Bigelow. That's what they were. Bob Bigelow had a lot of money. He was bringing in all these top guys, the Avery guys, paying them big money, and he was working on, and one of the things they worked on was the Holloman Air Force Base film. So they came to me, Hal Puthoff came to me, and Eric Davis came to me, and because I'd worked with Bob, I knew Bob very well, and I knew all the background stories, and they were trying to figure out the Holloman Air Force Base. So what they were going to do with the Holloman Air Force Base story is they were going to actually interview Paul Shartle. Paul Shartle was the security guy at Norton Air Force Base that actually gave Emenegger and Sandler the film, and he had a rollover car accident on the way to 2 weeks before he was going to be interviewed by NIDS. So they were working on this as well. But what you got to remember with the Holloman Air Force Base film, Bob told me, he said they had to take the film back. They had the film in their possession, then they had to take the film back, and then I heard the story that there was 8 seconds of the film in the documentary, the 1975 documentary.
Right.
And I said, Bob, you told me they took the film back. He said, well, yeah, they did. And then he said, I said, Bob, there's 8 seconds of film in the documentary. Is that true? Well, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, you told me they took the film back. And he told me the whole story. I said, Bob, I know the story about how the film went back and who took it and the Datsun and all that sort of stuff. And I said, but there's 8 seconds. He said, well, it's not, it's just background. And I said, it's just background? What do you mean it's just background? And he said, well, it doesn't show anything. And then I go, oh, then I knew, understood. It's like, you shows it coming over the mountains at Holloman into the base, 6 o'clock in the morning. He told me the details, like exact details. 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 different cameras, one on the air with a helicopter, 3 on the ground, all this kind of stuff. And so he confirmed that they allowed him to put the 8 seconds of the film in there, but it didn't show anything. So it's not the classified part. And that's what they do. And one of the things that came out that he told me, he said, we got anything we wanted. We had NASA stuff, we had all sorts of stuff. And I said, what about that film? You told me about the film where they had the Vandenberg. Remember the Vandenberg story where the thing takes off from Vandenberg and it's going over the Pacific and these UFOs come and and the thing goes tumbling into the ocean? Mm-hmm. And he said, they analyzed the thing, and they told me who analyzed the film, and the guy said there's 1,000,001, this is a UFO and all this sort of stuff. And I said, did you send that one back too? And he goes, no, I think Alan Sandler still has it. I said, he still has the film? And he said, yeah, it had top secret. It had Quintanill's name on the canister. I said, Alan Sandler still has the film? So I sent Angela Joyner to go get the film, eh? And we played around. James Fox found out about it. He was trying to get it in his last documentary. That film is in a vault in Oregon. So you get this kind of stuff. But the thing is that it always, they release what they need to, and they always have this backup where the plausible deniability. And I know Hal Putoff was trying to find it because Senator Christopher Dodd had filed an FOIA on the thing. And he had actually gone and they found out it was in a Navy sink. Now, I don't know what that means, but I heard this. But Hal was really interested in it. He was trying to figure out this story, and so was NIDS. And the other related story to that was, at one point, this is 1975 when they did it. They were offered the film in 74, and in 75 they do the documentary. And then I'm talking to Bob one time. I'm in Arkansas. I'm talking to him. I said, Bob, it's kind of strange. If it weren't for the location and the time of day, because it happened at 6 o'clock in the morning, I said, if it weren't for the location and the time, that looks exact. It's the story is Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He said, what, I didn't tell you? I said, no, you didn't tell me what? He said, I didn't tell you I gave a copy to Spielberg? And I said, no, you didn't tell me you gave a copy of the documentary to Spielberg. And he said, I told you, Annie Spielberg, his sister, was a line producer. She worked for me for years. We worked on all sorts of documentaries. And he said, when it was all said and done, so 1977 Close Encounters came out, mm-hmm. which is basically the Holloman story, told in a fictional version. Mm-hmm. And he said, when it came out, Spielberg's mother came to me and she said, Bob, I've seen your version of the landing. And I've seen Stephen's version of the landing, and I like Stephen's version better. and so you see that they're dropping this stuff. And then what happens is Bob tells me the story, so I'm going after him. And he says, in 1983, they contact him again. Paul Shartle contacted. He said, we need you to come back to Norton. So he goes back to Norton. That's where they keep all the military film from all the different services or whatever. And Shartle says, the government liked what you did in the 1970s, and they'd like you to do it again. And he said, is this, who's this? Is this Reagan behind this? And they wouldn't answer the question as to where it came from. And so what happened was, he said, Paul Shartle was there. And then there was this Glenn E. Miller, who was the first agent for Reagan in Hollywood. And he was running the place, him and a guy by the name of Scott. I can't remember his first name, Scott. And these two guys, one was a general, one was a big, huge PhD guy. And so the general says, I want you to pull the film. Hynek was there. He said, I want you to pull all the UFO film and give it to Hynek. And Paul Chartle says, sorry, sir, I can't do that. You need a requisition. He said, God damn, I'll have your ass. You pull a film. I'm telling you, pull all the film for Hynek. And he said, no, General, I can't do it. You need a requisition. And Hynek and Valet tells a story. They actually pulled out because they realized they were going to do the same thing they did with the Holloman story, because they wanted Jacques Vallée and they wanted Hynek in on this documentary in the 1970s. And they pulled out because they knew they were going to, Vallée called it the dangling carrot, that they would pull the carrot at the last minute, pull the film, and they would get burned on this film. So they wouldn't do it. And then a couple of years ago, like Bob is kind of doesn't really remember too much about it anymore, but a couple of years ago, he was going to do another documentary. Hal Puthoff was working. That's why I'm working on these kids who can see through the blindfolds. Mm-hmm. The Chinese were doing this in the 1980s. They had these kids who could see through blindfolds, and the CIA was there. And the CIA was investigating this, of course, because this could be technology. Like, how does this work? What can we learn from this? And they were there, and Hal Puthoff was involved because he was doing the remote viewing, and he was in this whole thing. And he had told all these stories and showed some of the films to Bob Emenegger. So Bob was going to go with Alan Sandler, and they actually went through the Defense Department, and they went into second stage. They went through to get all this stuff, and then the Defense Department decided no. They were going to go and document these kids in China. This is only a few years ago, and do this sort of thing. So that's how they put it out. And I was even contacted in Hollywood, an agent in Hollywood, that they wanted me to do a thing. They were going to do a thing on the Avery. So I think Pandolfi was behind this, and they wanted to do a thing on the Avery, on these guys, and they wanted me to be the guy that was going to, and I said, I don't do that Hollywood stuff. I mean, I'm a researcher. I don't sit in front of a camera. I don't memorize lines. I don't do that kind of stuff. I'm not interested. I'll help you. Whatever you want, I'll help you. And he told me that Pandolfi was in Hollywood, and he was trying to get Joe Firmage, his material. And the agent guy told me, he said, this ain't he told Pandolfi, this ain't moving the needle. Nobody cares about Joe Firmage and his trying to levitate. And that's another example. Joe Firmage has spent $20 million or whatever trying to levitate this thing 1 inch off a table. I mean, if he's doing that and he's got all the money and the connections to intelligence, we don't have anything if we're trying to levitate something off a table. But he was trying to do that. And he said Semivan was there as well, trying to promote things on alien abduction. He was trying to get it through Hollywood. And that's what they're doing, is they realize that that's the way you change consciousness. That's the way you move the needle, is you get somebody, you put it on a TV so that a skeptic isn't confronted. Because you can confront a skeptic face to face, the guy says, get out of here, or I'll shoot you, get out of my life, you're bugging me. But if you put it on TV, the skeptic can turn on the TV and say, this is a nonsense, I'll watch this thing, this is crazy stuff, and watch it, and doesn't realize that it's this subliminal thing, that you're watching it like Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a real deal. The same as I can't say who told me, but E.T. the Extraterrestrial, apparently Spielberg's mother had said in an interview, and I know the person who did the interview, said to me that she said, that scene in E.T. the Extraterrestrial with the stuffed animals in the closet where E.T.'s hiding? It's a real story. Happened to Steven Spielberg. I went, what? It's like, and so you see that you weave this stuff into fictional stuff. You put the story out, but you're able to hold it because you don't want to lose the story. You don't want to lose control of the story. And that's what I always say. If the government wanted to disclose, they would stand up and tell you. So they're not disclosing, but they're not covering up, because if they wanted to cover up, they'd do what the Canadians have done. I was even asked the other night again, what about Canada? I said, I have 45 years. I have no idea what the Canadians are doing, because they don't talk about it. They just don't bring up the subject. I wouldn't know who to talk to. I wouldn't know what department to go to. The Americans talk it all the time. So they're not covering up and they're not disclosing. They're doing something in between. They're doing this, pull it out, put it back, this climatization. So what happens is it starts in the Rand, I think it was Rand that put out this thing in the 1960s that said, if you realize that there's ETs here, you got to acclimatize the people very slowly. You got to acclimatize them. So you acclimatize them, you put all this stuff, you pull it back, nobody knows which story to believe, you put in multiple stories and stuff like that, all this stuff about Area 51, and nobody can confirm anything. And then when New York Times says, oh, it's for real, the U.S. Air Force or the government is doing a UFO study, everybody goes, big deal. I knew that right.
Yeah, that's what we're going through today. That's exactly. And what is interesting, the Bob Emenegger saga, which he went through a few times. I mean, by that, he should have been reading from a playbook, by round 2, because it was the exact same situation. And we find ourselves doing the exact same things today. I think you're absolutely right with all of that. And when we look at the Pentagon, we look at TTSA, all of the revelations that came out with Leslie Kean in the New York Times, we find ourselves now, that's almost 3 years ago, right? It's going to be 3 years, Grant, and we're chasing our tails. It's
the exact same situation. One of the things is that if you look at the ASAP program, who's the guy behind it? It was Bob Bigelow. Bob Bigelow had the money. Bob Bigelow is the guy that got this whole thing going. And he does an interview. And I say it's a critical interview. It was done with George Knapp in 2013. And George asks Bigelow in 2013, remember 7 years ago, he says to him, and you got to remember, this is just after the program shuts down. Nobody knows that Bigelow is the main guy. And he says, are you in favor of disclosure? And Bigelow says, no, I'm not. I'm in favor of confirmation. You get it confirmed. Yes, this is for real. And you don't say anything about ETs or aliens or anything like that. That's exactly what they did. They just did the confirmation thing. UFOs are, and you remember them doing this, the people from New York Times, especially Leslie Kane. We're not saying aliens. We're not saying it's aliens. We're not, it's like, and you're backing away from that thing. And what Bigelow said in that interview is after a couple of years, then once they're acclimatized, then you can start talking about aliens. So that's what I think is going to happen. They're slowly moving this in to do season 1, season 2, and they drop this sort of stuff in there. And at the same time, they do the fear spin because you're trying to get money out of Congress. You're trying to get piles of money to get it, because if you can control this, you control the biggest story of all times. And that's what I think what they're trying to do.
When we talk about Spielberg and his interest, because if you go back and look at his volume of work, pretty much, UFO, experience. It's been one film after another, each one a little bit different, same basic story, same messages there, which would indicate Spielberg knows something. But I don't think that's the big story. The big story is the drip out of Hollywood and constantly giving us something. Today, Grant, it's fast radio burst. It's the discovery of new exoplanets. It's communication. It's the location of possible life out there and what planets. Asteroid flybys, Oumuamua. All of that combined with everything else that has been happening for the last couple of years indicates that the playbook is actually happening.
Yeah, I think they're just doing it on steroids. They've learned how to do it. In fact, I get asked all the time, why did the Navy come back out and confirm this when they'd already confirmed that they released the videos? And why did they do it in the middle of the pandemic? And it's because that's how you do it. You put it. This is just an expression. This is a perfect time for bad news. So you put it out in the middle of something, a big story, and nobody pays any attention, and it gets out there. The same as when did they do the New York Times story in 2017 on December 16th, when all the reporters are ready to go home for Christmas. Nobody's doing any investigative reporting. And when did they close down Blue Book? December 17th. It's the same playbook. Is you do this thing, you put it out there where nobody really realizes what's going on. The story gets out there and you let it float around. You have plausible deniability, and they are basically trying to. That's why I called the book "Managing Magic." It's a story that's not just UFOs. It's all this paranormal stuff. That's why they went to Skinwalker Ranch, because it's all apports and manifestations that happened at Skinwalker Ranch, putting bulls in the trailer and stuff like that. It really had not much to do with UFOs. So it's that managing that whole paranormal story, getting it to go the same way. So that if you're doing a story, if you break a story, saying you a discovery of the CIA, you say, I'm going to do this movie on the CIA. The CIA comes up to you and says, hey, Jimmy, I heard you're doing a movie on the CIA. You ever been to the CIA? We'd like to go to the CIA. We'd like to talk to somebody at the CIA. We can help you out. And that's what they do. They manage the story. And that's what, what's his name? Chase Brandon. He was in Hollywood. That was his job. He was there to manage the stories, to help people out, to get the CIA is always the good guys. The government's will help you do this, whatever. And you manage these stories. Instead of trying to kill somebody, you either manage them or you throw mud in the water. You put in a second story. So if you got a good story, I'll put in another story. It's exactly like yours from a different source that says something different. Now Jimmy Church is full of it. Jimmy Church is lying. This guy's telling the truth. And we start fighting with each other. Same as when Linda and I had a thing. The Holloman Air Force Base story, Bob told me it was May of 1971. And he should know. He was the guy who had the film in his possession. So then Richard Doty comes out and he says, no, it wasn't May of 1971. It was 1964. And the aliens, it was at White Sands, and they had the wrong location. It's like the aliens had the wrong location. And it was 1964. So Linda starts telling the 1964 story. I'm telling the 1971 story. And it looks like, one of us is lying. And yet they put these two stories out there to sort of keep everybody off base and just control the story, just keep moving it down. Because it really doesn't matter how long it takes them to do it. because that's one of my things. The reason I think they're not releasing is I don't think they know as much as people think they know. And it's the old game of play the cards. Everybody wants them to put their cards down on the table, but the Russians are playing the game and the Chinese are playing the game. If you put your cards down, you're going to give them what they want. Everybody's working on this thing because whoever controls this controls the world. They're supposed that's what they think. If you can get this technology, especially at the Skinwalker Ranch, when you see the stuff that was going on at Skinwalker Ranch, I mean, if you got that kind of technology, and that's why DIA went in there. They weren't really interested in UFOs. They weren't interested in spiritual stuff or paranormal. They were just interested. How do you get 4 bulls into a locked trailer? And you see the reports, and it says stuff through metal walls, and that's the whole deal. Is the military is always looking at the angle of weapons, and because that's their job. That's what Lou Elizondo says. I'm just here to protect. I'm here. He's doing the military thing. That's what you're paid for. And one of the problems that we have is that there's really nobody in the government who really had, like, the agriculture department is not going to do it. It really didn't fit into anybody's job description. And that's why they've done the spin thing, because you got a $735 billion defense budget. Who's going to miss another $10 billion to work on UFOs? So that's where you go. So instead of going to the aviation people that Leslie Kean did in the 1990s and 2000s, you move it to the Defense Department. You put the spin that these evil aliens are there, and then you scare the living daylights out of these senators, show them some film, and say, it could be bad. And they go, okay, how much money do you want? And they walk out with the money. But I still think the guys who are behind it, a lot of them people keep forgetting, a lot of the guys who are behind this are experiencers. Like Jim Semivan had the beings in his room. I mean, they were in there, and he went to Ron Pandolfi, and he said, these beings are in the room. What's the deal? You're the UFO guy. And he said, you don't have a need to know. And then Semivan said, I don't have a need to know, because he was covert ops, head of covert ops for 2 years. I don't have a need to know. You bring your boss's boss in here. We'll see who doesn't have a need to know. And then supposedly they bring in Tenet. They had the director, and he says, leave it alone. Pretend it's a one-off. Just pretend it'll never happen again. It'll ruin your career. And as soon as he leaves, he gets briefed. Pandolfi brings him in and briefs. And that's exactly what Kit Green told Richard Dolan, that the people in the government don't have the high security clearances. But the minute you leave the government, that's when you get the security clearance, when you go to work for the contractor. And they have it in the contractor world because it's not, there's no FOIA.
No accountability. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another interesting part. I want to come back after the break, back to Skinwalker. But the interdimensional part of this, where something seems to be, I've seen enough of it, and so have you, something is phasing in and out of another reality, another dimension, parallel world. I don't know how these things manifest themselves. And when you see it at night and you see these things at night, that's one thing. I had a sighting with a group of friends that was in the middle of the day. And I don't know if you've heard the story. I'm not going to waste a bunch of time on it now. But we saw an object that was about 14 miles away. I'm going to guess and say it was 400, maybe 500 feet tall. And it looked like a beer can spinning like this. And it was black, had a round circle on it. And it was huge. It was giant. We all saw it. Anyway, It's moving across the sky, Grant, like this, spinning. And then I went back to my binoculars. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, blue sky, right there, right in front of us. Mm-hmm. And it phased out. This giant object that was physical. It was silver on the top, silver on the bottom, black with this thing, and it's huge. And we all see it. Steve Murillo was there. Well, anyway, it disappeared in the middle of the sky in front of everybody. Now, what does that suggest? That's the ability to appear and disappear or go into another dimension right in front of us.
That's one of the theories. I'm going to do a book on it. I call it the theory of wow. I always hated acronyms, so I call it TTOW, theory of wow. So what they're doing is Jimmy Church is here. Jimmy Church has got a voice. Let's do something weird. And the prime example is the Nimitz. So everybody's saying, Eric Davis says, then they're interfering with the Nimitz, the carrier group, and interfering with our military operations. Then nothing's not even close to the truth. They're out in international waters, fishing, sightseeing, the UFOs or whatever, and they sit there for a week. They were there for a week before that thing got picked up. And they're going, hello, we're over here, turn up the lights, come on, they can't see us. And then finally they chase them, and what do? They drop from 80,000 feet down to surface level in 7/8 of a second. Now, it's the same as yours. Why is this object going across the sky? Because when I had my first sighting, the first night, it blew me away. But the second night, as I was watching it fly away, I'm thinking, what the hell is it? What's it doing? It's not doing anything. So we had a joke. We said it's doing a beer run because it was coming from the United States. And we said it's coming to pick up beer and it's going back to the United States. We couldn't figure out what's it doing. So what's it doing? It's almost like it's just there and it does something really weird because you're going to tell the story. It's like when I said to Linda Howe, I said, Linda, why do they take the blood out of the cows when they mutilate them? And why do they do these bizarre cuts? Because if they didn't take the blood out,
it's just a cow. It's just a cow in the desert. Right.
Yeah, it's just a cow in the desert. Or they do the one with the heart, where they take the heart out of the cow without an incision. Well, what do they need? Hearts? I mean, this is crazy. They do it. Or why do they take the cow? They've got the cow in the ship and they fly off with the mutilation. Why do they come back and drop it in the farmer's yard from 100 feet up or 200 feet up? Because they want Linda Howe and everybody else to go take a picture of it. They're trying to send a message. And that's why I say it's the theory of wow. It's almost like you got these people on Earth. And you can't go to them and say, we're here to bring you freedom and democracy, Jesus and McDonald's, because you're going to pull a gun and shoot them. So you do it indirectly and you get them to you do all these things. So it's like on a foreign planet. The grade 1 class says, oh, let's put UFOs. Let's put these things in the sky with lights on them. Why do they have lights on them? They don't need lights on them. Why? And like John Lennon saw the one with the white lights around it and the red light on top. You don't need lights to fly through interstellar space. They put lights on so you can see them. It's all about you seeing them and telling the story. And it's got to be bizarre. So it has this trickster phenomena where it has to be really, and the more bizarre it is, the more people talk about it, and they're just doing these bizarre things to get you to understand we are not alone, and the consciousness rises so that when the New York Times says we're investigating this, people say, yeah, I know something's going on. I've heard these weird stories, and that's all they're trying to do. There's no message. They're not trying to eat us. They're not trying to do anything. They're doing these weird things like Skinwalker Ranch. Why would you put the bulls in the trailer? They're saying, watch this. I mean, this is really get their attention. Or the woman comes in with all the groceries, puts all the groceries in away, goes in the next room, comes back, and all the groceries are back in the bag. It's this trickster thing where people go, you're not going to believe what happened to me yesterday, or synchronicities. And they're doing these bizarre things to get your attention, and they're trying to drag us slowly through this consciousness raising to realize something really weird is going on here, and people start thinking about it. And when you come to the conclusion, when I come to the conclusion, you're not changing it. But if someone else tells you, you're just going to reject them and say, go away.
Yeah, we had the most, we had the Holy Grail sighting, Grant, middle of the day, 30, 40 people right in front of us, clear blue sky, moving slowly. We're going to watch this thing for the next hour. We're going to shoot video. We're going to do that. And that was the moment. And then it disappeared.
And that's the thing is they never stay around for an hour. They always they're not doing anything. They come in for a couple seconds, you see them, and you get sort of amazed, and then they disappear. Like they're not doing anything. They're just coming in, making you see them, and then they disappear. They're not going anywhere. They're not picking anybody up. Even like abduction. How many people have ever seen anybody being abducted? Nobody. You never see this stuff. They're just sort of going and they disappear.
Very interesting. Let's take a break right here, Grant. Stay right there. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Yep, that's right. We're going to do 5 hours of discussion in 2 hours with Grant Cameron tonight. Grant, stay right there. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. Always great when he's on the show. And I had mentioned in my opening comments, one of the great things about Grant is just being able to sit and have a conversation. And that's what we're doing tonight. And you guys, in a virtual sense, you're just sitting with us and living the conversation with us in real time. And what if you were watching on the cameras, I have a bunch of cameras here in the studio, and I was showing Grant some of the guitars here in the studio. That's what we do during the break. We're just having a conversation as friends. And Grant, thank you so much. It's always great having you on the show. Skinwalker Ranch, and I want to shift gears to this because it seems that, and this is me from the outside looking in, but over the last year, we had DeLong and his TV show on History Channel. 2 years, 2 seasons of Project Blue Book, which has been canceled. I don't understand that. And now we have Skinwalker, and which is on History. I haven't seen it yet, by the way, so I can't really make any objective comments on it. But the point being, it seems that the programming is being developed from almost like the same group of people, right? That is being put out there. And do you think that we are going to, just like DeLong series, Skinwalker is kind of like a DeLong series too, in a weird way, indirectly, but are we going to see results, or is it going to be like Finding Bigfoot, right, where there's not going to be a conclusion and we are always going to be, you just said it, chasing the carrot?
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to have solid conclusions. I think it just keeps going. It gets a little more detail. Like I remember back in 75, people don't realize, because I've been at that long, that everybody thinks what happened now happened then. And it's like a totally different world. I mean, in fact, it was believed that UFO sightings were random events. So if you saw one, you were crazy. I mean, if you saw two, they'd lock you up. I mean, you could never claim you saw two UFOs because it was so rare. Everybody thought it was a random event. And then when Bud Hopkins comes along and writes Missing Time and the Intruders, then everybody suddenly realized, like, oh, these people are being taken over and over again. And then we bought into that. But in 75, nobody believed that. And you see the phenomena has changed in terms of what we believe. We know so much more. We didn't know any of the consciousness connections to it. We didn't know about the missing time. We didn't know what the inside of the ship. Now we know a lot of details about the inside of the ship. You know, it's like 500-watt light bulbs. The light doesn't come from anywhere. It's almost like this description in the near-death experiences. Like I asked the people near-death experience. It was really bright. Yeah. Was there a sun? No. Where was the light coming from? I don't know. It was coming the same description as the UFO experience. So there's all these details that we've got, and yet things are changing, almost like the phenomena is changing as well. Because in when I started, we had these ground traces. Remember, Stan used to say this is the absolute physical evidence. Right. Got these ground traces. It lands, burns out the thing, leads the tribe. That hasn't happened for 20 years at least. There's been no ground traces. And crop circles only started in 1982. The cattle mutilation only started in 67. In the 60s and 70s, there was stuff called angel hair. Most people today wouldn't even know what angel hair was. In our day, we knew what it was. Right. And it's this idea where almost like they keep changing the playbook. And they do these weird sort of things. Now all these people started coming forward with the orbs and with the light language stuff. I had never heard about light language until I heard Mary Rodwell had a bunch of kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, speaking this weird alien language. And then when I got that, suddenly now I'm inundated with these people who've had panels with these light language people. And you see that the phenomena is almost like it's getting more complex and that they're revealing stuff that we didn't know before, almost like they're allowing us to see things. Because people think, oh, they take the abductee and they stop them from remembering anything. But that's not true, because they don't remember it at first. But there's a lot of experiences where somebody is regressed and they're putting something in their leg or like an implant, and they're saying it's now time for you to remember. So abductee people are at one point, they actually have it in dreams. They make you go to a psychiatrist. They're driving you nuts. You have these terrible dreams and stuff. Betty and Barney Hill, same thing, where they had these dreams and they couldn't get them out of their head, and they went, and then they find out what had happened. So they're forcing the issue. They're blocking it in some aspects, and they'll actually tell the person. The person will say, "Well, why are you teaching me all this stuff? Why are you taking me in the middle of the night like all the time? I can't sleep. You're taking me and stuff." And they said, "When the time is right, you'll know what to do." And they do open people up. Suddenly people remember what happened. And so it's this gradual thing that the government is doing, this gradual disclosure, but the intelligence, whatever it is doing the gradual disclosure as well. And that's where the Skinwalker Ranch thing. So it goes Skinwalker, you get them at Skinwalker and all this stuff is going on, and then it stops. And then Bigelow doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. He sells it. And now they've got this thing. I don't know if it's really that much going on like they're claiming, but the Skinwalker thing happens all over the place. Like they talk about, for example, they followed the special forces guys home. Oh, it's the hitchhiker thing. It's terrible. It's followed these guys home and stuff like that. And it's like, no, it follows everybody. When you become part of the phenomena, you can actually say to someone, they say, "I don't think I was abducted. I had a dream." And then I say, "Anything else weird happened to you?" "Oh yeah," and just not telling you. "Everything ever fall out of the sky or disappear or reappear in the house?" "Oh yeah," and the people, and all this weird stuff, the hitchhiker, it's all the same thing. And with the Skinwalker Ranch, one of the key things that I learned from Skinwalker was what George Knapp said, because not everybody had an experience there. So you're saying, oh, it's the area, and that's why they're having this stuff, because there's something in the ground or whatever. But John Alexander ran NIDS. He was the general manager or whatever for NIDS. He was there all the time. George Knapp tells the story. I was sitting out there with the bugs, and he said, "I'm waiting for them to come and get me." And I never saw a thing when I was there. And then George Knapp said, the guys who were the most aggressive to the phenomena had the worst experiences. And this is this manifestation thing. This is this idea that you are part of the phenomena you're having. And so I said to them, were these guys armed? Because he had special forces guys. Mm-hmm. Bigelow was bringing in special forces guys. Were they armed? They were going to go. And you remember the story where they're going down, the portal opens, and then they get this voice in their head, and they say, "You are to leave. You are not welcome." And these special forces guys are absolutely traumatized. They go home, and they have the port stuff. They have the wine bottles flying across the room, smashing against the wall and stuff like that at home. And the people that they're living with actually move out because it's so paranormal, it's so weird, and so violent And then you go back and you look at other examples like Michael Talbot. Michael Talbot wrote the book, the Holographic Universe. And that's where we started getting this idea. It may not be the universe we think. Michael Talbot, according to Linda Howe, Bud Hopkins told her that he was a client, that he was an abductee. And he wrote this book. And he says when he was a child, like every other UFO experience, he had poltergeist experiences in his house. There was gravel on the roof. His father would get these shovels of gravel off the roof and stuff like that. And he said when he was in a good mood, the poltergeist was very playful. And it would hang the socks off the plants and stuff like that. But when he was in a bad mood, he'd wake up with needle marks and pin marks in his arm. And that's this whole thing with Skinwalker Ranch, is that you are part of the phenomena. So the people who were having the experiences were not George Knapp, were not John Alexander, they were Eric Davis. Eric Davis is an experiencer. He had this experience with a UFO over his head, daylight experience, when he had his graduation party, when he got his PhD, him and his wife, and nobody else saw it. And they were sitting there and it had lights on it and a big triangle comes flying over. He's an experiencer. And that's what you start to see, is that these experiencers are part of the story, and they're the ones that had the experiences at Skinwalker Ranch.
Is Skinwalker, in your opinion, is this an ET story or is this a supernatural story?
I think it's more a poltergeist. In the book, I'm doing a book on reports and manifestations. I think I've got 20 items. So they had like the thing with the groceries. Then they had the posthole auger that ends up in the top of the tree. It disappears. That's all apport manifestations. It happens in seances. It happens around UFO experiencers all the time. They'll tell you the same thing, that these kind of things are appearing and disappearing and stuff like that. And the bulls was the catch. And then when they bring in, again, you bring in the guy from the DIA, the guy that ran the DIA program before Elizondo, he comes in and he sees this infinity sign made out of metal. He goes onto the ranch, he gets brought on the ranch, and he sees this, and that's when he decides they're going to go in there. But that's all they're interested. That's all DIA. And Jacques Vallée at one point said he was involved in Skinwalker Ranch. He said about the only thing we didn't have at Skinwalker Ranch was UFOs. They had the orbs.
And that's the thing. What I find so interesting about Skinwalker, because you and I have been to different locations around the country where things seem to be location specific. I would say that I'm pretty confident in saying that. At Skinwalker, nothing in the sky, right? Yeah. Everything is on the ground involving humans.
Yeah, and that's why DIA was interested in it, because of the military applications of putting things through walls and making things appear and disappear. I mean, that you can understand why they would be investigating that. And yet it's been turned into sort of like a UFO story. And when you start to look, I mean, there aren't UFOs. There's these orb things, which are a big part of the UFO phenomena, but stuff on the ground, portals, maybe related to, and again, they would be very interested in the portal thing. They even contacted me. They were sort of, because I was following the Mission Rama thing. I sort of made that story public in the English-speaking world, where they had these Zendras, where people are inside these Zendras, where the aliens are in there, and there's 7 people, and they're seeing all this stuff, and they can open up these Zendras, which we call portals. And I know Pandolfi was really interested in that stuff. In fact, I've got him on camera. The one time he was really, really angry. He was on a cruise ship going through the Panama Canal, and he's on camera. The only time he's ever been caught on camera. And that's where he says, they kept putting this portal story out. And then this thing came, and his wife says to him, "Okay, Footman, what do you say?" And that's his code name. Like, he's the Footman and she's the princess. You know, he's taking care of her, whatever. And then he says, he's sitting there and he says, "You know, everybody's wondered what it's like to go into the next world." And then he says, the next time John, and this John guy is a guy, he went to UCLA, I think, with John. He was a guy at university with him. So this John guy is sitting beside him, and John's sitting there cleaning his glasses. He's looking at him. He says, next time John goes to the desert, a number of people in this room will go into the next world and come back again. And so I grabbed this. He put on his wife's Facebook page, and I grabbed this thing, and he was really angry. Maccabee had told him about it. He said, that Cameron's a thief. And it's like, well, you put it on Facebook. And it's the only time he got caught, but he's talking about this portal idea. And he kept repeating, or even his daughter. They get Joe Firmage on with his daughter. And his daughter is like 6 years old. And they say, have you got a question for Joe Firmage? He says, yeah. She comes on and says, how many portals do you have in your house? And I'm going, a 6-year-old kid is saying that? They're talking. There's something's going on. And so I hung on to that. And that's that whole thing. That's what Kit Green says. When Peniston said, you're going to tell me what the hell's going on here. And he says, it's propulsion. He said, what do you mean it's propulsion? He said, we're trying to figure out how does it pop in and pop back out. because that's what it's doing. It's not coming, it's not flying in. It's what you saw. It pops in, it disappears, it reappears, and it's almost like it goes into another dimension or something. And CIA and Kit Green said there was 8 guys working, and it looks like they got Defense Department money, and they're working on this thing. They're trying to figure out this thing. How does it move in? How does it move out? And then when you look at, I don't know if you heard the release tape that Kit Green, it leaked out, and I got a hold of this tape. I gave it to Burroughs. Burroughs said, no, it's not Kit Green. No, it's not Kit Green. And then he went to Kit Green and said, yeah, it's me. And on the tape, you think, well, they're doing nuts and bolts and stuff like that. No, they're doing Skinwalker type stuff. They've got this woman, her name is Kay Randall May, and Kit Green's talking to her, and it's on tape. And then what Kit Green says when he was confronted, he said, well, I'll tell you what, the client released the tape. Legally, I can't talk about it. End of story. So he wouldn't refer, but he's saying to the woman, he says, you're 95% accurate. And he said, who are we dealing with? And she says, there's a portal off the coast of California, underwater. And she's going, and I'm going, wow. It's like, this is Kit Green, ran, life sciences at the CIA, was the head of the Weird Desk. And he's talking to this woman like in woo land, and he's talking to her, trying to get answers out of her. It's the same thing as Chris Bledsoe. You go to these people, you got in the field, she's in the field, she's a medium, she's very accurate. And then he starts talking about this test. And I remember this test they were going to run with the Chinese. Kit Green was going to run this test with the Chinese, where what they do is they put one person in an MRI, then they put another person in the MRI, and they were going to do it from China to America. And then the one person would send a telepathic message to the other, and they would have the MRI, and they would be able to see, is consciousness non-local? Right. Does it take time for the signal to go across, or is it instantaneous? And on this tape, he's talking about putting this woman in one MRI and putting Uri Geller in the MRI. And Uri Geller's not bringing his cameras in to film this thing, because Uri always wants to be on camera and stuff. And he's not bringing his cameras. He's not going to be doing this. And they were going to run this experiment again. And I don't know what happened to it, but you see this thing where when I start to see those kind of leaks, then I see that they understand there's something really weird. There's a phenomena going on, and that's why they're looking at the DNA of the experiencers and looking at the MRI. Is there something in the brain that's an antenna that's picking up the signal? Because they're trying to figure out how do they make this connection. And everything they learn can be turned into weapons. It can be turned into information. And they're trying to figure out how the universe works. And that's why I sort of get frustrated a lot of time with the UFO community, that people are into like the sightings and stuff, and it's fine, it's sightings, whatever. But what we do in documentaries is we keep doing the same thing. So we do Rendlesham, we do Roswell, now we got Nimitz, and then we do Travis Walton, and then the next series comes up, and then we do Rendlesham, we do Travis Walton, and we tell the same stories over and over again instead of saying, okay, UFOs are real. Even now, the government has said UFOs are real, and people are still out there trying to get more cases to prove UFOs are real. And it's almost like the Rodney Dangerfield. I always say, people should be like me, where the thing goes right in my face the first time I saw it. And then you never worry about, is it real? But people, it's almost like they feel bad because they're in the UFO field and they're trying to prove it to their friends and neighbors. And I say, forget about your friends and neighbors. Get beyond the UFO. It's real. Let's try to figure out now why they're here, what's going on. And majority of UFO community, they say, well, that's anecdotal. Well, it's all anecdotal. You saw a UFO sighting. The Nimitz thing was, has the film. You're taking their word for it. The pilots, you're taking their word for it. It's all going to be belief systems, but we have to get past just how many green ones and red ones and fast ones and slow ones, and realize that the experiencers, unlike the government, the experiencers, the people that are interacting with the intelligence, and there's a lot of them, that they're telling the truth and that you can learn something from them, and they will tell you. The government won't tell you what's going on, but the experiencers will tell you. When you sit with Chris Bledsoe and you start hearing the people around him and who comes to investigate and all the stuff that's happened around him, you start to realize this guy's in contact with something, and he's clearly got some sort of connection. And if you can figure it out, then you're going to learn something about how the world works, because all it is something that it's part of the world. It's not paranormal. Well, it's paranormal, but it's nothing magical. It's just something we don't understand. And the more you study, but you got to be studying the right things. So I think we need to spend more time looking at the bizarre things where, experiences, 37% have near-death experiences, and that the near-death experience people turn off, you can't wear watches and turn off electronics, and you see all these crossovers. And I think I understand a lot more. I'm very confident with what I think is actually going on. I think it's going to be sort of interdimensional. Like in the 50s, they talked to the aliens. They say, where are you from? Oh, from the moon. we're from Venus, Mars. And then suddenly we realize there's nobody living there. And then it's like, oh no, we're from Zeta Reticuli. Or I asked, Sherry Wild asked the Gray, are you actually an alien? And he goes, no, not really. Or when I talk to experiences, I say to them, was the guy wearing clothes? No. Did he have any sex organs? No. You saw him like for 50 years. Did he ever get any older? No. Did he have a belly button? No. And you start going, maybe this isn't what you think it is.
Right.
And so I think we can learn a lot by talking to the experiences, which I don't think we're spending enough time doing.
I don't know if you heard, you just mentioned trace evidence, like the last craft imprints I can think of, like officially, is Rendlesham, right? I don't know, but anyway, when we're talking about the physical side of things, I don't know if you heard, but we had Jacques Vallée on the show maybe 6 months ago, and he said one thing. Well, he always says interesting things, but he has always shied away from the nuts and bolts side of things, and it's interdimensional, and there's something else non-physical that is causing body injuries. We need to look at this. We need to get the science applied, excuse me, and figure out what's going on. Well, 6 months ago, Grant, and you should go back and listen to the show, he said this. He said, well, Jimmy, I asked him, I said, so do you have secrets, right, that you're about to take to the grave, right? Is there something you want to get off your chest right now? And he said, well, Jimmy, we know we have retrieved crashed flying saucers, and we have done, and so he continues on, but he made that statement. He's never crossed that line before. Jacques Vallée actually said, and I don't know if it was intentional or if it just slipped out because he's always so cautious, but he said, we have retrieved crashed flying saucers. It's in the public record now. It's out. I'm not disclosing any secrets from Jacques. This is a statement from him. Pretty extraordinary to come from Jacques Vallée, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, Hal Puthoff admitted that he made a slip too. He said there's a crash saucer document out there that's real, and Linda was dealing with him. I said, Linda, ask him what document is he talking about, and we never got the answer. But he I don't think he should have said that. And Eric Davis said, yeah, we got the crash material, and he was going after Lazar. He said, and it's not at Area 51. It's not even there. I mean, it's the wrong location. And so he's sort of admitted that. But you mentioned Jacques Vallée and the metals. The metals is the same thing. It's the theory of wow. It's like the grade 4 class says, let's drop some metal on these guys. Because it's like they come across the galaxy. This is what we make these kind of weird assumptions, which are wrong. They come across the galaxy, flew all the way here, and then little pieces start to fall off the thing. It's flying along and a piece falls off of it. And it's like, no, they're throwing this stuff down. And all the pieces are different. We recovered one from James McDonald's files at University of Arizona. In fact, Desto was the one that discovered. We're in the files and we're looking at these boxes, whatever, and she finds these photographs from 1967. And this is an object that came flying out of the sky in 1939 in Illinois. And the guy saw it coming down, and it landed into the yard, and it was so hot that he couldn't pull it out. That's in a port. Ports are heated up. When something appears and then reappears in another spot, it's 15 degrees Celsius hotter than when it, so it heats up. So the guy pulls it out of the ground, and he doesn't know what to do with it. So he gives it to his daughter, and she lives in Tucson, Arizona, and NASA has a lab. They're going to the moon in 67. They have a lab there. So she's got this thing that her father gave her. It came flying out of the sky in 1939, and it looks like a spike with these bubble things on the top, like bubbles, like it was heated up or whatever. And they go there, and they have this thing analyzed at the lab, and they determine it's 99% nickel. There was nothing flying out of the sky like plane material or whatever. And they just said it's got a center core, which is copper. And they basically, that's all they could really determine about it. And so James McDonald put it in his files. He didn't know what to do with it. Now we know. It's the same thing. I've got like 3 pieces of metal, or even Tyler D. If you know the story with Tyler D, they take Pasalka and they take Gary Nolan.
They go out to the crash site, yes.
The crash site. Okay, it was my friend that took Tyler D there. That's how they discovered it. My friend took Tyler D there. So I know where the site is. And you hear them using this word, and Chris Bleswell, the same thing. They call it the gifting field, which means this may have been a purposeful crash. Roswell may have been a purposeful crash that they've given us the material. We still can't figure it out, but they're giving us this stuff because there's no way something's going to come across. And there's piles of, in fact, Jacques Vallée, through a secondary person, came to me about the Canadians. The Canadians had all sorts of metal in the 1950s. Wilbert Brockhouse Smith, the guy who ran the Canadian government program, his son tells a story. I interviewed his son, said the government was coming all the time. There was guys with suitcases with chains on their arm, with pieces of metal coming from the U.S. Air Force, and that they would get the Canadians to analyze the metal. What do you think about this metal? And they were sending it back. And Smith said, they asked him, where did you send it back? Did you send it back to the CIA? He said, no, higher than that, but I can't tell you. So it was going back to the U.S. So you had this metal in the 50s, and they keep dropping this metal all the time, and it's the same thing. It's a theory. Wow, it's like, what is this? Or crop circles, like, what is going on? Or even you mentioned the thing with Rendlesham Forest. If you know the story, Jim Peniston says when that craft was there was light coming from underneath the craft, and he looked under there, and there was no landing gear.
Right.
So how did it leave tripod marks if there's no landing gear? He pushed it. He tried to push it, and it was solid as could be. And it's almost like they may have made the landing gear to make it look like it was sitting on a landing gear. There was no landing gear. Peniston said there was no landing gear.
Yeah, I've scratched my head over those statements so many times. We just had Peniston on the show last week or the week before, and everybody seemed to have, even though there's crossover information that is similar, but everybody at Rendlesham almost had their own experience.
Yeah, and that's what you start looking at. Why did they come 3 nights in a row? I mean, this is not a random event. This is a planned event. That's where they had the forward-based nuclear weapons. And that was when Poland had gone. Poland had the Russians had put the tanks on the border that same month. They were going to reinvent Poland because of what's that group that took over Poland, the labor people, and they were going to separate, and Russia was going to take it back. That's when that thing happened. So they come 3 nights in a row. Same as the Nimitz thing, they were coming repeatedly. And it's not a random event. It's something that's planned to get it. And you see the thing where they're all having different experiences. The same thing happened in the Zendra when Paula Harris and these other 7 people, I interviewed all these people that were in the Zendra. And I said, so what did you see? Oh, I saw this 10-foot guy. He had long hair, and you could see his face, and he was standing there, and he had the boots on, and he looked like a swimmer. He was all muscular. He had this real tight thing on. And then you ask him, okay, what did you hear? Well, the Paula Harris hears this guy talking in some foreign language. This person is getting a message. All of them had a different experience, completely different. It was like he was talking to 7 people all at the same time with different things. And you see that thing where it's the old thing, the time and space starts to fall apart. The fact that you can have separate events and you hear this in the spirit world with near-death experience people, where they'll say that somebody's talking to 100 people at the same time, that you can communicate this thing. And you see that in UFO experiences, that even like my friend, when he had this experience with his wife on coming down the water along his house, where they had 2 different experiences, saw 2 different things. And so that's the whole thing is, it's part that you're manifesting. People think there's objects out there that are doing things to us, that we're just random biological robots in a meaningless universe. People got to realize we are part of the experience, and there may not be any out there. In fact, some of the messages that you get, it's all within us. There's no out there. It's all within us. Where is the world? Even, this whole concept that it may just be the one electron, it may just be one thing, and it's such an illusion as to what's going on. And that's why it's important to talk to people who got out of the illusion, or who have talked to these beings that say they're from the 7th dimension or the 11th dimension or whatever they're saying now. The story is developed from going to the moon to now other dimensions and stuff, and it sort of fits in with our understanding, our scientific understanding. They seem to be just one step ahead of where we are.
Let's take a break, but I'm going to ask you to go into overtime. You're not going anywhere, Grant, so you just stay right there. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron. This is Fade to Black, another amazing conversation on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Follow Grant on Twitter at Grant Cameron. And, of course, all of his links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'll be right back after this short break. Overtime with Grant Cameron. All of that is next. Stay with us.
listen to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hello, my name is Billy Carson, and I am a best-selling author and the founder of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Together with my team, we have built an all-new conscious streaming TV platform designed with every family member in mind. If you have ever wanted to travel the world and attend lectures and workshops from your favorite speakers but weren't able to, look no further. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. There are dozens of workshops and lectures from speakers you know and love. We have also included amazing categories to assure that your consciousness is entertained and elevating on a daily basis. Amazing interviews, ancient history, ascension knowledge, wisdom teachings, documentaries, conspiracies, mysteries, health and fitness, conscious cooking, meditations, finance, yoga, and so much more. To start your free trial on any mobile device or computer, surf to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Again, visit ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Grant Cameron, going into overtime. You expected that. There was no way this conversation was stopping. And Grant, before we move forward, I do want to thank you for your time tonight and to hang out with everybody going into some overtime. There's so much to discuss, and I haven't gone directly with you on opinions. I just want to have some fun right now. There's overtime here is relax mode. Let's go into relax mode.
Sure.
Which I want to discuss. I want to get your opinions on the 3 videos and what you see. And I think it's important. Everybody, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a Bigfoot video. It could be sleight of hand, rabbit out of a hat with the magician. Everybody's going to see what they are going to see. And everybody's got their opinions about these 3 videos. Let's start with FLIR. Let's start with the FLIR video. When you first saw it, what went through your mind?
You're talking the Tic Tac one then?
Yes.
Okay. So when I saw it, I was dealing with Dan Smith. And when the thing came out, I said, Dan, what's Pandolfi got to say about this? What's Ron got to say? And he comes back and he says, it was done on a simulator. It's these guys are Scientologists and they're trying to scam everybody and they're loons, crooks, and worse, and all these kind of stories. So that was what I was trying to do. I'm trying to get the highest level official. When I saw it, I still have this theory of wow. So they allowed themselves to be filmed. Whatever this phenomena was, all the three are different objects. And so they sat there for a week. Again, they were there for a week before anybody chased them. And when they chased them, then they get the film, and then the jets fly off, and then they come back again, and then they say, hey, Zogar, go into the water, make some bubbles. They're coming back. And then, of course, they go by, and there's bubbles coming up, and it's just like to me, it's like a big game show. It's like they're making these sort of interesting displays. I heard they had 200 videos. At one time, I heard they had 200 videos that they were going to release, and that these things were going to come out. Now, why they didn't do the ones, and the other thing that was interesting about the videos, the FLIR and all the others, was that there was this leak. You know about the Mellon leak, right? The Chris Mellon's website, this whole thing, Twitter Jake. And so I had the guy who actually, I think, put the Wilson document and the alien autopsy document on the internet was a guy, and I won't describe who the guy was. He doesn't deal with me anymore, but I showed him this. There was the packaging. There was the videos on Mellon's website. They showed the videos. They showed the packaging slip. And it had Lou Elizondo and it had Mellon. Now we know that Mellon was the guy that got it in the parking lot and brought it across, whatever. And there was this D. Essex. Now I know her name. It was a woman from the public affairs. And my friend had a guy in the Pentagon. And I said, can you find out who this D. Essex is? And the next morning he phones me up. He says, we got a direct hit. My guy in the Pentagon says it's this woman. And her name it's D. Essex. I can't remember her first name was. But anyway, so you can see this. He said, and she would be in the office that would be involved if they were going to make some sort of public disclosure. So it's coming out of public affairs, which is exactly the same office that Colonel Coleman was in, who released the Holloman Air Force Base film to Emmenegger. And Emmenegger said they went into the Pentagon. They did not sign in at the Pentagon. They walked in there, and the public affairs guy said, this is terrible. You're ruining it for everybody. Man, you guys start talking about UFOs, and the phone comes off the hook. And then Sandler says, you guys invited us here. What are you talking about? And I was told they actually signed a contract with the Pentagon. He said it was a straight film contract. And so you see this, again, it's this release, and the beings are allowing themselves to be filmed. They are showing up as different things, and they're just doing, to me, it's like a game show where they say, do this, flip this, so that they know it's beyond an ordinary craft. Do something really weird so they can look at it. And I believe the videos are real. They may be bigger, but what you see with the FLIR was they dropped it already. They dropped it in 2007. To the German production company. They were trying to get it out then. They wanted it, and it didn't work out. Whatever the scam was that they were going to do, they were going to drop it in 2007. It didn't work. So now they drop it again in 2017 with the New York Times. So it's the same game. They've got the same films, and they run the same operations. They've been running it since the 1950s when Disney did was offered all the films, and according to the animator whose name escapes me, he was one of the 9 animators for Disney. He tells the story at the MUFON conference that Disney was told to do a documentary, and he was given all these films, and they pulled all the films on him as well. And then later, Mike Maloney, a film guy from Great Britain, says the fact that same animator from Disney showed him the alien autopsy video in the 1970s, and that it had a live alien, not just the alien autopsy, it had the live alien in there, and he said it was the same film as they were showing. I saw it, and if it was faked, it was really good. So you see this thing with the films, but the films always sort of get pulled back. This time they left the film out, but again, they said there was going to be 200 videos, and some were up very close, and they just put it out and leave it, deny it, same as they did with the names. The New York Times was told it was advanced aerospace. The Washington Post the same morning went with the story. It was advanced aviation. They put out 2 different names, caused the confusion, and then said that the videos aren't real. We didn't release them. Then we did release them, and it's this game where nobody knows. It's like shifting sand all the time, and it works to their advantage. They're doing this, I guarantee you, they're doing this gradual acclimatization, and it's not the government doing it, because there are people in the government who are believe in demons and that this is all demons and they're going to stop it. It's people in the government who are very sympathetic. So what happens, and this is just my personal opinion, what happens is Tom DeLonge goes to Lockheed. Lockheed sets him up with all these people, go to the Pentagon, and he meets these two intelligence guys. He goes to NASA. He picks up a guy there. NASA sends him to Ames. They send him to the general. Then the general starts giving him all these people. And you have this situation where he puts out the first book in 2016 in April. Semivan finds out about it. And they have the meeting in San Diego in the hotel room. You know this story with the 6 agents, and they say, "Where did you get all this stuff from?" Then Semivan tells Green. Green goes to Puthoff. Puthoff goes in there, and Puthoff joins the team, and that's how they assemble all this stuff, because that's where the money is, that's where the information is flowing. But it's not government; it's people in the government. And then if you hear what Tom DeLonge says, the whole thing about Lou Elizondo, he says, "Quote, I hired him away." In one of the interviews, I still can't find whose interview, he says, "I knew about the guy, and they said you will never release this guy's name." And they used an acronym for Elizondo, but they were talking about Elizondo, and he said, "I hired him away." So Elizondo is sympathetic. He's in there. He's about to retire, and Puthoff is working for Elizondo. So Puthoff goes in and says, "Oh, would you like to join Tom DeLonge? He's going to pay you this much money, whatever." And so he retires. He was probably going to retire anyway. He retires. He goes out, and that's how they get all these people together. But it's not government. It's people in the government who want the story. The same as Bill Moore. When he was contacted 7 days after the Roswell book, which sold like 1 million copies in 1980, when Roswell became famous. Nobody knew what Roswell was before he put out that book. They came to him and said, "You're the only guy who knows what you're talking about. We're from the government. We'd like to help get this story out." And these are the same thing. It's like Puthoff, and it's John Alexander. It's all these people, and they were feeding material as well. But it's people sympathetic inside the government. So you have the people that don't want it out, the people that want it out, and these people figure a way to get this material out. So they're sort of like the good guys in the government who are frustrated. And that's what I would say about Green and Puthoff. They have probably the longest held top secret SCI clearances in the United States of America. They've had them since 1970, since remote viewing. So they've had these things, and these guys are old guys. They're in there like 80 or more, whatever. They don't need the money. They're just trying to figure it out. They've been working on it their whole life, just like you and I. They're down the rabbit hole and they can't get out.
So it's not to put words in your mouth, but you feel that the FLIR, the Tic Tac video, is not of this earth.
Oh, absolutely. No.
Okay. All right. Let's go to gimbal. When you look at the gimbal footage, what do you see?
Well, I just see another release. I see the release of, and this is, I think, I happened off the east coast of the United States, and there's this story behind it. So it's another video that they have approved that we're going to release this one. It's not close up. It's like the Bob Emenegger thing. It has plausible deniability, like the Bob Emenegger one says, this light coming over the mountainside, coming in daylight, but it's coming over the mountainside. So it's not up close. That's what Bob said. When it gets up close, when the aliens actually land and the door opens up and the aliens get out, now that you're not going to see. Same thing here. So there may have been parts of the video that didn't. So it's still plausible deniability. And you see, it's been years, and except for the Navy coming out and saying these are real videos, everybody still goes like, there was still this denial. No, it's not, and it's this question mark thing where you can't really say it's definitely alien, because it's sort of like has this plausible deniability thing. So that's what they're going to use. They're not going to use a close-up one. They're going to use one that can be questioned and the skeptics can still walk away from.
And so you think that the gimbal footage is also authentic? It's an ET craft, not of this earth.
Yeah, they're all the films are going to be authentic. They're films from the 200 or more. They would have thousands of films, thousands and thousands of films. Even if you go back to the first sighting, Kenneth Arnold was given 2 8x11 photographs, like gun camera footage of flying saucers from the 4th Air Force. Now, why are they giving him gun camera footage if it's a big cover-up? It's the same thing. It's this leak. It's like they want the story out, but they don't want the story out, and this is plausible deniability. So these 3 films that they do are films that are safe, where it doesn't really blow the whole story up. It's just enough to put it out. Because that's what I heard. I think Elizondo said that we've got stuff up close. But that kind of stuff you may not see for a while. They're just doing this gradual thing. Let's see how the people can handle it. put it through Hollywood, make it plausible, put it through fictionalize the story so people don't know what the real story is, like the ET and Close Encounters, and put it out and just slowly move people along. Because I guess they have the same fears that and I say the scientists are the guys that are going to be the worst hit. People say it's the religion guys. I say no, it's the scientists. When they suddenly realize it's not a nuts and bolts universe. It's very, very weird universe. And you're completely, everything you learned in science Sunday school is wrong. You've wasted your whole life at this thing. It's time to take the cyanide pill because everything you believed was wrong. And that's the guys that I think they're the guys that are fighting back.
Right.
So you have to protect those guys if you're the government, to give everybody an out. So they do these films where they sort of put them out, they pull them back. And it's the same story. They've done it right from the time of Kenneth Arnold, and they've done it over and over again.
And Go Fast.
Go Fast that's a very bad video. It's almost like an orb video. It's like zipping along the ocean side. But again, I think it's a legitimate film, but it really doesn't show too much. And that's what they really want. They just want something that's kind of interesting, coming from the Pentagon. And if they wanted, to confirm it at the beginning, they would have confirmed it. But they played that game. They played the game. No, we didn't release this immediately. Because the guy that interviewed Hillary Clinton, when this thing happened, I went to him immediately because I knew him because I'd done the Hillary Clinton book on Clintons and the UFOs. And I went to him immediately and I said, get in line. You're a reporter. Get in line. File an FOIA immediately on these films and stuff like that. And he got in line. He still hasn't got his FOIA back. But they knew everybody was going to come after it. They've delayed all this stuff, all the FOIAs. They haven't responded to all this stuff. And they're playing this sort of game of gradual disclosure. That's what I say. It's this drip, drip, drip disclosure thing that they have been working on, and they're really good at it now. They've learned how to do it. They've learned how to. They've actually moved the whole thing, and it may be that the disclosure has taken place. The disclosure is, yes, UFOs are real. We've got these films. And what did they do to Trump? The Navy goes in and briefs Trump, and they say, look, we've got these films. We don't know what these things are, but they're not Russian. They're not Chinese. And Trump, who I've known always, had no interest in UFOs. When Hillary was talking about UFOs, they asked the reporter from the New York Times asked him. He said, "Oh, I assume you're talking about outer space. I'm not interested. I don't care what Hillary was talking about." And so he doesn't have. And so he sees the videos, and it's plausible deniability. So he looks at the videos. He says, "Those are really interesting videos. I don't believe it." And he doesn't believe it. He doesn't really believe it. And it gives you that plausible, that out. So it's evidence, but it's not the real evidence. If they want the real evidence, they're going to pull out the flying saucer. They're going to have the cameras. They're going to have the alien bodies and stuff. That's not what they're doing. They're doing this gradual thing. Show them a video. Show them this video. Almost like Bigelow says, get confirmation. Just confirm. Yes, we have videos. Yes, they're real. Yes, this is UFOs. We're not saying it's alien. It's unidentified. And then you make the next steps down the road as you gradually move this thing. You can't throw it all out at the same time.
Yeah, what I find interesting about the videos is if we didn't have David Fravor, if we didn't have all of the eyewitness testimony to go along with this, or the powers of suggestion that these are UFOs, if anybody just sees these for what they are without the backstory, I don't think anybody sees alien or ET in them. It's the compelling eyewitness testimony that goes along with it that supports the videos. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And in fact, it is just an ordinary, because there's a lot of videos out there that are better than that, but it always has the same problem, is it's like a video, and that's why Nimitz has been such a big story, because the Americans have such a high impression of military people. And that's what Jacques Vallée said. It's a UFO sighting 15 years ago. Let's get over it. And it is. It's just a UFO sighting, and it's just a film. It's not the end of the world film. It's just kind of interesting. Right. And you got these guys, but because everybody has such a high impression of the military, right, everything's great. Same as the military, when you had the 1976, and those documents were leaked too. The NORAD documents. I remember Bob Pratt from the National Choir, when I was at that time, the documents were there inside when Travis Walton is abducted in November. Just before and just after, they have all the incursions inside the nuclear weapons storage areas at Loring, Wurtsmith, Minot, Malmstrom, all along the Canadian border. They have all these things. And what do the UFOs do? They go in there. Do they turn the lights off? No, they turn the lights on, and they're right there, and people are looking, and it's like they're sending a message. And the government leaked that stuff out too. The guy that the Iranian jet fighter story, that major one, that was leaked. And the guy who leaked it, the guy who did the report on the Iranian jet fighter story was the guy who contacted Bill Moore. He was the second guy. He was at Offutt Air Force Base, and he was DIA. And people don't realize there's all these stories behind stories. When you say, well, where did these documents come from? And it was, the government gave them. It's like, no, when you start looking, it's this gradual leak. It's like move the story. And that's what the intelligence agencies are supposed to do, is to manage the story. Just move it so it doesn't blow up in your face. Walk along somebody like you're begging for money and just be nice with them and move them in the direction you want to go. And that's what they're doing. So this is a gradual disclosure. I think you're going to see more videos. You're going to see more stuff dropped, because that's what I heard. I told you I had this producer when they were trying to get me to do this thing on the Avery. I've been contacted twice to do an inside thing where I'm going to be in. They said you'd be executive producer. I said, I'm a researcher. What the hell do I care about an executive producer? I could care less. It means nothing to me. I'm into figuring out what this thing is. Because when I saw the UFO, the second night I was looking at it and going, what's it doing? It's like it's just flying along, and I'm going, and I knew it was for real. And then all I was interested in, when nobody would publish the manuscript, when I told the story of what happened in that small town, the publisher said, I don't care. And I went, what? And then all I wanted to know was what's going on. So that's my interest. So when they came to me, but the guy told me that Pandolfi was in there and Semivan was in there, and they're promoting all sorts of projects. They're trying to get these projects to get this story out indirectly. Plus, you make a lot of money. That's why I think part of the reason for using DeLong is not a really smart UFO guy. He doesn't know the intricate parts, or he's not a researcher. He's a PR guy. That's why like when he talked about Bob Lazar, he said, I have the lifetime rights to Bob Lazar's story. To him, it's and that was I knew the guy that was going to do the app for To the Stars. They're going to do the app, where you have the cell phone and you see a UFO and you put it in there. And people said, well, he's going to track the government. They're going to put it in the government. The government's going to track it. Maybe true. But I said, to me, when I heard that, I go, oh, that's what Tom DeLonge's doing. So if Travis Walton, you have a Travis Walton abduction, and that guy phones in the story to Travis Walton on his cell phone, Tom DeLonge now owns the story. He's going to control all the big stories that are coming in as they come in. And he's just, that's what he said. He even said his biblical name, his real name is the truth teller. Like he sees himself like he's the guy who's going to put the stories out. He's going to make money. He's telling books. He's telling fictional stuff. He's the storyteller. And these guys are using him. They're going through Hollywood. And that's what they said to Chris Bledsoe, because I knew what was going on with Tom DeLonge. I knew about Jim Semivan and all these guys 8 months before they went public, because I knew Chris Bledsoe. I was good friends with Chris Bledsoe for many years. And he was sort of telling me a little bit what was going on. And so they had all this stuff, and they put it out. I knew they were going to put it out. They did exactly what they were going to do, and I was not really surprised by anything they did. And so that's basically the thing. It's a gradual disclosure thing. Everybody's making money. Everybody's doing their sort of thing, and that's what when Semivan had his experience when he went to Pandolfi, and Pandolfi wouldn't tell him what was going on. When he got out, he went to Chris Bledsoe. I don't know if you know the story. He went to Chris Bledsoe, and he said, I was not allowed, I knew about you. I was not allowed to talk to you until I retired. Then he went to Chris Bledsoe's birthday party, became friends with Chris Bledsoe, and he went to Tom DeLonge, and he said, this is my friend Chris Bledsoe. I want you to take his story to Hollywood, and I want you to make it happen. And that's where Chris started to move into Hollywood, and then he broke off from Tom DeLonge. But that's the whole deal, is they've got these stories, they move them through. Tom DeLonge makes money. These people make money. Everybody's got their thing going, and they're getting the story out. They're still like CIA. Nobody ever leaves the CIA. Even Jim Semivan is still under contract, as far as I know, with the CIA. They're doing this gradual, same as Bill Moore. When Bill Moore did it, they brought this guy who was the head of covert ops for Russia. They brought him out of retirement to run the program, so they know how it works. Bill Moore worked for the CIA. Bill Moore had done work for the CIA when he was at university. Jimmy Shandera, who got the MJ-12 document, had worked for the CIA during the Vietnam War. It's all these connections. It's indirectly guys you trust. You're moving the stories, and everybody thinks it's a UFO story, whatever. They don't realize there's all of these moving parts in behind, and this stuff isn't coming out accidentally. And that it's like a big show, and these guys know exactly what they've been doing. They've been dropping this for years, and I think they're doing a really good job. I think they know what they're doing, and they have moved it. You've gotten to the situation where the U.S. government has admitted UFOs are real, and we're studying them. I mean, that you have to give them credit for. Whatever you say about them, they moved that story, and I believe it was Semivan, and I believe it was Mellon who moved that story through the CIA. That's what part of Semivan's job was this PR thing. He has an English degree. He's the guy that knows how to move in behind the scenes with Voice of America and stuff like that and make these deals. And people got to realize there's all these things going on behind the scenes in this story.
Now, 2020, we've just got 2 minutes left, Grant. Again, thank you for the conversation. Here we are. We expected other things to happen over the last 2.5 years, going into 3 years. 2020 has now has its own set of media coverage that is it's burying anything out there. It doesn't have to be UFOs. It could be sports or music. All stories are buried these days. Is the UFO subject and disclosure part of this bearing of the news? Are we going to be able to move things forward in 2020, or do we have to wait once again for next year to 2021?
Well, I think you're going to wait, because my understanding is that they're going to use Hollywood. It's not going to be, Semivan coming out and make a statement. They're using this fictional version, and Hollywood is shut down. I mean, so they're not really doing anything now. And so, like all the series and stuff like that, I think there's a delay. Same as I remember when Tom DeLonge, because I knew they were going to drop this thing, and then Tom DeLonge, even 2 days before they dropped the New York Times thing, he said, he put up a Facebook or an Instagram post, and he said, "Ugh, another delay." And even it sounded like Tom DeLonge didn't believe it was going to drop. So he really doesn't have control over it. But it's this Hollywood thing. And the guy told me, they wanted Pandolfi. They didn't want to do the Firmage thing. He said, I told Pandolfi, we want you to go on camera and tell us what's going on. They're not interested in Joe Firmage or anything. But I know they're in behind the scenes and they're trying to move this thing. And you see all these series. I mean, there used to be like one UFO show a year. Now it's like every day there's a UFO. There's piles of stuff. They're moving this story along, and I think they're doing a pretty good job at it.
Now, where can everybody go and get the new book right now?
Amazon, I guess, is where you'd go. And I've got a link on my Facebook, Grant Cameron Facebook site, where you can read the first couple of chapters where I explain contact modalities, what I believe is going on in terms of how these contact modalities work. So there's probably 50 pages of material they can read that explains it.
We'll get all of that up in Twitter and social media for you. Grant, once again, great conversation, my friend, and I can't wait till November. We'll break some bread. We're going to go do some sky watching with pastrami sandwiches. Thank you so much. Grant Cameron. Grant, be safe up there, okay?
Honor. Thank you.
You got it. Grant Cameron just went poll to poll. I got to go straight to credits here. What a great conversation. And I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow night is Fader Night with open lines all night long. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2020 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, open lines. I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.